good, Austin?
Austin, do you have everything that you need from out
All
front?
right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to open up the July 8th, 2025 meeting, Village Council meeting. I show the time at 6 o'clock. I show we have a quorum, but we got John visiting us from afar, but he is with us as well. That said, we need a motion to consider allowing participation by a member that is not here present.
So moved.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have adoption of the agenda. Any changes?
Yes, we do not have closed session, so that just needs to be removed.
Okay.
Besides that, I don't.
All right, that said, I'll need a motion to approve the agenda
moved.
as amended. A little quick on the, all's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have adoption of the previous minutes. Everyone get a chance to look at those? Any questions, changes? Need a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. There he is. All right, next up, we have Pledge of Allegiance.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John, you're a little echo for us there, so thank you. Next up, we have public comment period. Now, this will be different. If you're here for one of the public hearings, you can save your public comment, but this is general public comments. You said, Austin, you wanted to read the rules on the public comments, please?
Yes, a maximum of 30 minutes shall be allocated to hear from the public during public hearings in the public comment period. Speakers shall sign up on the sign-up sheet at the entrance to the council chambers before the meeting is called to order. No individual will be permitted to address the council if they do not sign up prior to the start of the meeting. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers shall approach the podium, state their name and address when addressing the council. Speakers must be civil in language and presentation and act within reasonable standards of courtesy. Use of slander, name-calling, personal attacks, or threatening speech or behavior is prohibited. The council may designate or ask for spokespersons for groups supporting or opposing the same positions. The council shall not engage in debate or commentary with residents during the public comment period. The audience must maintain order and decorum in their conduct and must refrain from disruptive applause, comments, or disorderly speaking during the meeting. A person who interrupts, disturbs, or disrupts an official meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor. A person who interrupts a meeting and is asked to leave the meeting by the presiding officer and refuses is also guilty of a misdemeanor. Lastly, for zoning public hearings, citizen comments on zoning amendments in accordance with GS 160D-603, if a resident or property owner submits a written statement regarding a proposed zoning amendment, modification, or repeal initiated under GS 160D-601, the clerk to the board shall deliver such written comments to the council if received at least 2 business days prior to the vote. For quasi-judicial proceedings under GS 160D-705, only the names and addresses of commenters shall be provided, and the receipt of such information shall not disqualify any council member from participating in the vote. That being said, we only have one person signed up for public comment tonight. That would be Tori Comiskey, 312 Painted Turtle. Get it, yeah. There you go.
Good evening. All right, you can let me know when to start.
You're good.
All right, my name's Tori Comiskey. I live at 312 Painted Turtle Court. I'm here to provide the community with an update on the Preserve Marvin Creek Connector Trail project. My family is suing the Village of Marvin, the Marvin Creek HOA, and Kim Vandenberg for infringing on our rights in pursuit of the invalid easement, a project that is not and has never been on the master plan. In January of '24, you all had to cease construction on the project because your staff had conducted exactly 0 of the required environmental and engineering studies that are required to construct a bridge and trails in a flood way. I had to educate your planner that village ordinances do not supersede state and federal requirements. That should never happen. My family spent the entirety of 2024 trying to resolve this issue as neighbors with the Village of Marvin and the 5 Marvin Creek HOA board members, only to be met with derision, stonewalling, defamation, threats of consequences and arrows, hiding of evidence, obvious lack of expertise or training, and general lack of good faith overall. After exhausting all other avenues, our only recourse was to file our lawsuit in January of this year. Since filing, the Village of Marvin has provided very little substance and has even dropped previous defenses that they had clung to throughout 2024. In February, a temporary restraining order was put in place to prevent any construction on the trail. That remains in place, and we are currently awaiting the preliminary injunction ruling from the judge, which we expect to hear sometime this week. Your team demanded that the Marvin Creek HOA be added to the lawsuit. We couldn't argue against that since we've obtained copious evidence showing deep coordination between the two entities. Then this village council attempted to add over 360 homes, which equates to about 700 individual Marvin Creek homeowners. Your Marvin constituents tried to get them added to the lawsuit. Your own constituents. Your attorney failed in that attempt, but the residents won't forget. You are all in possession of the October 24th survey that was conducted by the Marvin Creek HOA, in which the neighborhood results overwhelmingly said no to the trail project. But as documented in previous public meetings, you guys don't accept no for an answer, do you? You're also in possession of the resulting email from the HOA president asking for the easement back for the second time. Additionally, you're all aware that in March, the entire board of the preserve was replaced at a special meeting related to this same trail and connectivity issue. Besides the legalities, that means that this council is well aware that the overwhelming majority of Marvin Creek and the preserve residents don't want this. You've been provided proof, and yet you persist and are even willing to force us into court over it. If this trail is not being pursued in keeping with the will of the majority of the residents of these two neighborhoods, who exactly is it for? We have FOIA requested any documentation of resident support for this project, as reported by Ms. Vandenberg in the December 24 meeting. Mr. Yao confirmed that no such documents exist and thus returned 0 results. Not an email, a text, meeting notes, nothing.
Thank you.
And
That's
finally,
time.
you don't
Thank
and
you.
never did have the easement on the preserve
Thank
side
you.
of the
Time.
trail to even be able to construct this connector trail in
Thank
any
you.
case. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that's all for public comment.
Next up, we have feedback from the previous public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have something that I would like to address. First and foremost, I've been on this council for 7.5 years, but I'm a mom first. So I'm going to address some Nextdoor posts that have been sent to me by friends because I'm not on Nextdoor. So from Ron Hamill, Lisa Rose, and Bill L., for you all to claim that I'm hiding behind my 16-year-old Nextdoor account is just flat out wrong. I'm certainly not using my son's account. If you have proof it's me, please post it. Since you don't, you're just another troll peddling baseless nonsense, creating drama that doesn't make you relevant and quite frankly makes you look ridiculous. And to the other multiple adults, some in this room who are harassing my 16-year-old online, it's not just pathetic, it's disturbing. There's nothing cute or funny about bullying a teenager from behind a screen. You've had your whole lives to grow up, and this is what you become, people who pick fights with kids. It's not edgy, it's embarrassing. You're not intimidating anyone. All you're doing is exposing how bitter you are and how small you really are. Try picking on someone your own age. I'm here. I can take it. Thanks.
All right, any other feedback from previous public comments? John, you're good? He's waiting.
None for me.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on to presentations. First up, we have recognition of Finance Director Jill Carilli's completion of certification exams with the NC Government Finance Officer.
So I'll just, we don't have an actual certification yet, but I will say that Jill has passed her final exam to now make her eligible to apply for the Certified Finance Officer certification, which is the first that we've had here in Marvin. So congratulations. They only opened the application window in the fall, winter of this year, so she will make that application, and she will be our certified finance officer at that point, so congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations, Joe. All right,
Great job.
moving on. Next up, we have the consent agenda. I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, we have a public hearing. Please note that the same rules governing the public comment period also govern public hearings with the addition of the following rule. Citizen comments on zoning amendments in accordance with GS 160D-603. If a resident or property owner submits a written statement regarding a proposed zoning amendment, modification or repeal initiated under GS 160D-601, the clerk to the board shall deliver such written comments to the council if received at least 2 business days prior to the vote. For quasi-judicial proceedings under GS 160D-705, only the names and addresses of commenters shall be provided, and receipt of such information shall not disqualify any council member from participating in the vote. That said, we'll need a motion to open up the. I get this wrong every time. I knew I should have asked. Okay, so.
You're the mayor, you can just open it.
Okay, so we're going to open up the first public hearing. I want to make sure I have everything. Okay, first public hearing for CZ-2025-1 to consider adoption of an ordinance approving the development agreement and rezoning of the 3.022 acres at 10018 Marvin School Road from rural residential to Heritage District Commercial only, HD-CO-CZ. Is that Austin? Is it?
Yep. So I'm going to just go over kind of staff report, and then we can open it up for the hearing. So as mentioned, the village has received a request to rezone the property located at 10018 Marvin School Road from rural residential to the Marvin Heritage District Commercial only. This proposal is to rezone the property and develop it in accordance with the Marvin Heritage District as outlined in Article 8 of the MDO. Can you go to the next slide for a second? So that this is the subject property. It is the property here adjacent to Village Hall. The surrounding properties include to the north the Preserve at Marvin, which is residential / common open space. To the south is Village Hall. To the east, across Marvin Road, is the Gates at Ansley. And to the west, once again, is the Preserve at Marvin common open space. This, the proposed development does include 4 new commercial buildings totaling 30,000 square feet of commercial retail. It is proposed or planned to be in 2 different phases. Can you go to the next slide? In 2 different phases, with phase 1 being buildings 1 and 2, which are the 2 buildings there on the left, and buildings 3 and 4 to be built after that as part of phase 2 on the right there. This is just a proposed kind of timeline. The developer does have the right, if rezoned, to develop those buildings in any order, but the intent is then to build the 2 closest to Village Hall first. Getting into the permitted uses, the intended uses include specialty commercial and retail space with the in compliance with the permitted uses in Article 8, the table 8.1, which is our permitted use table. The applicant has also agreed to prohibit certain uses as part of the conditional zoning, and basically those uses are the any residential. This is a site-specific plan, so they would have to come back and amend it, but all the residential uses on top of some additional other commercial uses that weren't just a good fit for this this site. Can you click the next one? So this is once again another rendered of the project. So the proposed, go to the next one, sorry. One well, these are the renderings. So we'll talk here. One more. I want to get to the site plan. Here we go. No, that's the right-of-way improvements. Go one more. That's fine. Leave it here. Okay. So the site, there's currently approximately 26 trees on the existing site. The applicant would be required to have a tree preservation and mitigation plan as part of the construction document phase. They have already included an existing tree survey. So we do know what the existing canopy trees are on the site. For the buffers, the applicant is proposing a 20-foot vegetative buffer along the rear and side of the property line, which is compliant with type C per Article 11, which is the compliant buffer type for this project. Staff did recommend that they increase the buffer to 25 feet along the rear. They did agree to that, so this new updated site plan does have a 25-foot vegetative buffer there along the rear of the property adjacent to the residential properties there on the preserve. Staff also did recommend to, with approval and discussion with the preserve HOA, there's an existing fence on their, the preserve's common open space, to have that fence removed, and then the developer would install a new fence on the property line of this property. Open space, the proposed plan has 9.5 of tree preservation and buffers, 9.5% of tree preservation and buffers. It also has 20% of dedicated open space amenities of the, totaling 30%, which is the minimum required open space for a Heritage District project. For greenways and trails, the only proposed connectivity here is the applicant has agreed to dedicate an easement along the frontage there for the construction of the Marvin Loop project. The applicant has also agreed, depending on timing with that, that is a funded project, to either construct or will pay a fee in lieu for its actual cost of construction of the material and such for his portion. So that's all outlined in the development agreement for this project. But if the developer does elect to construct it, it would have to be in compliance with the 100% approved plans for the Marvin Loop. So we do have consistency there. For parking, the proposed development has a total of 92 parking spots on the site. It's a total of 98. They are proposing cross-access with the Village Hall property, which they would construct those additional ones there. So it's a total of 98 new parking spots being constructed on the site, which is approximately 3.5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. Just a reminder that the Heritage District does not have a minimum parking. So therefore, from a compliance standpoint, they just have to comply with the minimum ADA, which is 4 for this amount of building square footage and proposed parking, and they do have those 4 required ADA accessible parking provided. For vehicle access and transportation on the site plan, the applicant did a TIA. That TIA and improvements have been incorporated into the site plan. You see the proposed development would have a left turn lane left over into the development with a center median that pretty much extends from the existing roundabout. It has a right tapered stacking to access the development. The development itself would be right in, right out. Then the access for Village Hall would also then become right in, right out, which is, as most of you guys know, already a safety issue of trying to turn left into here as is. So that would address somewhat of that safety concern on both ends. For water and sewer, the proposed development will utilize Union County water and sewer. Water is accessible from the, you can go back. Yeah, you can go actually all the way in, I think is where the water and sewer, yeah, this one works. The existing water already runs along Marvin School Road. There's an existing sewer easement there at the top right of the property. All of this will be obviously subject to approval by Union County Water in regards to the developer, if approved, getting permits approved by the county to extend the water and sewer to the property. Stormwater, this plan does include an underground stormwater retention system, which per Article 19 of the NDO, all developments disturbing over an acre of land or having a net increase in impervious built upon exceeding 24% of the total area minus the built upon prior to the adoption of the MDO, which they would be obviously developing the whole site, so that's irrelevant. But however, they would have to provide stormwater detention to control peak runoff from the 2, 10, 25, 50, and 100-year and 24-hour storm event Once again, all that would have to be then reviewed in compliance with our standards, or with our ordinance as well as our engineered standards, and receive permitting approval by NCDEQ if the rezoning is approved as part of the construction document phase. Finally, the applicant has met all ordinance requirements. They held a neighborhood meeting on Tuesday, February 18th at 6 p.m. here at Village Hall. Those meeting report has been included in your packets. With that being said, all rezonings of the heritage, or all conditional rezonings also do require a development agreement. The applicant has provided a development agreement, has been reviewed by staff and the village attorney, and all mutually agreed upon conditions have been incorporated in either on the site plan and or in that development agreement. That being said, I will turn it over to the applicant for any other thing, or is there anything you want to add before the public? Don't know.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Chris Duggan. I represent Rounds Development and Ravi in this application for the rezoning. We believe that this application meets all the requirements of the Marvin Development Ordinance as well as the Heritage Master Plan. This is one of those unique situations where you have a developer who has listened to this board, listened to the planning board, listened to the residents. A lot of work has gone in by Ravi, and some of it I would say that I don't agree with, but that was his decision as the developer. Whether it's reducing the heights of the buildings, some of the buildings reduced from 2 stories to 1 story. Whether it's creating this interconnection between the village hall and the development itself, or looking to ensure that water runoff might be controlled. We're looking to see if we can work with the preserve in creating some beneficial storm water runoff in the future for them. And we'll actively continue to work with them. We listened to the residents regarding security. We're actively looking to and hoping to engage with Union County Sheriff's Office and creating a substation here for Marvin that would benefit all the residents of Marvin. We have taken those buildings, and Ravi has taken those buildings from those blocks that you see there to very aesthetic looking buildings that is more in line with the conditions. And you see on the left side there that was the original presentation. We heard from the boards, we heard from the residents that it doesn't fit. And the right side is where we went to. That's what we have now. Those buildings, we believe, are more in line with the surrounding structures, actually with this structure here in the village of Marvin. Again, we have listened to the neighbors. We have incorporated those comments. We understand that not everybody might be happy with this development, but we believe this development fits within the master plan, not only of the overall development ordinance, but also what the village intends to do with its heritage district. So we would ask this council, without any questions, to approve the application for the rezoning of this property. So unless the council has any specific questions.
Ravi, do you have anything to?
No, I don't have any. Chris covered everything.
Okay. Any questions from council before we move on to public comments?
I just appreciate, I know that this has been something that you've planned on doing for some time now, and I know that you personally have gone above and beyond, I feel, to listen to everyone. The plans show it. I mean, you sat down and you listened to everyone. And again, I'm sure even after all of that, you're still not going to make everyone happy. But it is, I know from my standpoint, I appreciate you taking the time to listen. Again, you're not going to make everybody happy. There's still people that are going to be upset with anything going on. My only comment has been all along with the people that do object to what's here and what you're doing. I think you're doing an amazing job. There's a huge investment from your standpoint, but it is also your property. And as a landowner having people telling me what to do with my own land can be sometimes, I guess, short-sighted, very short-sighted. Because if it was their land, they'd be saying and wanting to do the same things that you're doing. So, but I do appreciate your taking the time to make the changes, listen to everyone, and I commend what you're doing. I think it looks great. Thank you.
I know stormwater has been a big issue. Can you walk me through what you guys have kind of landed on and explain that? Skylar, come on down.
Skylar, come on up and explain the.
Yes, I'm Skylar from DPR. So I'm the civil engineer on the project. This is actually a good graphic to depict what's going on. So that green area there will be an underground detention system. There was a lot of back and forth about could we do something surface? The answer on this was no, because of Robbie's dream for this project and being able to financially support what he wanted to do here. So in order to use the most of his land, we decided to put it under the parking lot. There is a little circular structure just outside of the underground piece that will provide treatment. And then those two green arrows are where it will outfall, which matches the natural drainage outfalls as it is today.
And to add, there was conversation with the Preserve HOA. If you look at, once again, following the natural pattern, the outfall there at the top, of looking into having that piped into the existing storm system for the preserve. Once again, all that's contingent upon the preserve granting the applicable easements, on top of the village reviewing both plans, making sure that both stormwater systems are compliant. But and essentially, the way our ordinance reads is what's falling off or coming off the property post development.
Back up like 4 sentences.
Okay. So the developer has met with the Preserve HOA regarding storm drainages. That was one of the big concerns that they brought up. In that discussion, it was one of the solutions and something to explore further, which is also a condition of this rezoning, is for the developer to look at tying in that outfall at the northwest corner there to the existing storm drain or storm system in the preserve along Flowering Peach or Yellow Jasmine at the entrance. But at the end of it, if they can't come to an agreement, because that's an agreement between them and the preserve, obviously, as I mentioned, this storm system would have to comply with our requirements for, they would provide an engineered design as well as the hydro analysis, verifying that as built, it will meet those requirements in our ordinance. They would receive the permit approval from DEQ and go from there.
So if they don't get the easement, then what happens?
They would construct is what you see here where that outfall is, which because it
just
follows the natural drainage pattern.
Just the one that's closest to Marvin School Road?
No, they would construct both
They would,
because it's following the natural drainage pattern. That's what the ordinance requires.
So the only one that it would replace is the one that's in the northeast corner. So right now, what the plan would be is to just outfall like into like a swale, a vegetated swale.
Okay.
What Hunter's talking about is it would be an underground pipe that basically bypasses all that and goes right into the
Okay.
street.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And that has been made a part of the development agreement. It's in the miscellaneous provisions in paragraph 416. So it's not only that they orally agreed to do that and work with them, we put it as a condition.
Tell me what page that was again?
Yeah,
Chapter, sorry.
Should be on page 51, unless it's been updated, or 52. 416, I think N.
Well, yeah, it's not that we actually have to go forward and construct it, we just got to work with the Marvin to see if we can,
Good faith efforts, yes.
good faith efforts.
No, that's true. But and since it's a contract, there's a duty of good faith and fair dealing. So you've
Yes,
got to
sir.
look into that in good faith.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Can you talk about that lighting? I know the neighbors are also concerned about the lighting. Can you walk us through that, please?
Yeah, so as part of the construction document review, we'll submit a photometrics plan. And what that shows is basically everywhere that we have lights, it shows how much light each individual fixture emits. And all around the property line, we show that there's no foot candles. Basically, no light is leaving the property line. So that's like a condition of the project moving forward.
And obviously, that complies with our ordinance.
Well, so yes, they would be required to provide a photometric plan as part of their construction documents. And our ordinance outlines, as Skylar was mentioning, that basically each light has a foot candle, and that you can't permit over it, it's either 1 or 0.1. I can't remember off the top of my head, but essentially you can't emit light off your property that becomes an issue onto adjacent properties. On top of what they are proposing are the ground kind of mounted lighting compared to overhead, so that also helps with the foot candles and still provides the needed lighting to light the walkways and the parking lots and all that during those times.
I'm just going to say a few things. Full disclosure, I've known you for a number of years. I think I met your son before I met you because I was doing a presentation at the elementary school. And there was a lot of talk about we had some sort of relationship when I had never met you, and then we finally met one evening and stuff. But I never knew you as a developer, and some of the comments that you're listening, I think, is important because a lot of times developers, they hear you, but they're not listening. And I just want to share a story that was related to yours, that when it came to what we're doing here, that it's going to bring crime. Your answer to that was to offer a substation. In talking with that individual that was concerned, their words, "Oh, we don't want them that close, the officers that close." I'm like, so it's a no-win situation many times for you, so how are you enjoying the process so far? I mean, it's I would assume your first time developing something, so but those are some of the things we face. It's like we're trying to figure out answers and also follow our rules and stuff. So I appreciate the fact that you did listen, or you are listening, and you're not going to make everyone happy, but that probably says that we're probably close to somewhere where we can come to some sort of an agreement. But is there any other comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor, may I just say two other additional things real quick? Is one, just to clarify that this is a site-specific plan, meaning that site plan is specific to this development. If the applicant were to sell the property, whoever purchased it would have to then follow this plan or come back through the same process again to do something different. Furthermore, the architectural renderings, the rezoning plan, all that stuff also gets incorporated as exhibits into the development agreement, gets recorded, once again tied with the property. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear as well. But other than that, I will state that staff has recommended approval of the proposed rezoning. Planning board also voted 6-1 at their May 20th meeting to recommend approval with the recommended conditions from staff, which I'm just going to hit on these real quick. All of these recommended conditions I'm about to mention have either already been incorporated in on the site plan or are referenced in the development agreement specifically. First condition, all exhibits and attachments as submitted by the applicant shall be incorporated as part of this rezoning. Compliance with all terms and conditions of the included development agreement. All NCDOT and village traffic engineering comments and recommendations shall be considered with the construction documents. The applicant shall consult with NCDOT on those potential road improvements along with Marvin School Road. As I mentioned, he's already initiated that process. Require a detailed lighting and landscape plan with construction documents to be reviewed by the village for compliance with Chapter 152, which is our outdoor lighting chapter. An easement for the Marvin Loop will be dedicated per the site plan to the village. Consider a fee in lieu or potential improvements of the Marvin Loop to be installed by the developer. Require a maintenance plan and agreement for the parking, landscaping, and buffering. Also to increase that rear buffer to 25 as previously mentioned. And then the final one that was the applicant will continue to work with the village and the Preserve HOA on the stormwater solution. So with that being said, that's
Anything in there about an easement for a monument for the Heritage District?
Yes, that was something that was brought up and then discussed with the applicant. That is also included in the development agreement as that the applicant slash developer will dedicate an easement for a monument heritage district sign per our 2023 wayfinding master plan. And they have agreed to that. And then, potential cost share, all that stuff can then be negotiated after that. But they will at least dedicate an easement for the placement of that sign.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? I think we'll open it up to public comments now. Do we have anyone that's here to speak?
Same rules for public comments apply to public hearings. First up is Stephen Black, 1927 South Tryon Street, Charlotte.
All right, thank you. Good evening. My name is Steve Black. I'm an attorney with law firm Carolinas. I am here tonight to represent the homeowners association that is adjacent to this property, the preserve at Marvin. You've heard a lot about them tonight already. There are a couple of messages that the association would like to send the council this evening. One is a thank you. They have been heard. They have felt like they have been heard. Their points, you've heard from them multiple times during this process, and individual homeowners in the neighborhood as well, and they want to thank you for that. They do feel like they have gotten some of the things that they wanted during the discussion, so that is also appreciated and certainly recognized for the developer. They are not opposed to development. There are three key points tonight that I need to raise. First, you've already picked up on it, it's the drainage, the stormwater drainage. I don't know if we can get that slide back up or not, but that shows the clear problem. There is an outfall heading straight towards the neighborhood. Right now, does drainage go that way? Of course it does, but it's spread out. And currently, there's a video a gentleman just showed me a minute ago, if you'd like to see it, where there's water running across his property that's probably a half an inch deep, maybe an inch deep. That's already happening because of that angle of the drainage on unimproved land. What's going to happen when you narrow it down, put it into a pipe, and then shoot it towards the property? That's a problem. We don't believe that the current plan, we have not seen the engineer's plans on how this is going to work, but I don't know of a way to solve that if you're not tapped into the manhole cover, which that easement hasn't been discussed. It has been. Currently, it's been denied. But that is a significant concern here. We recognize that we're a long way down the road on this plan. You've been thinking about this for a long time, that the developers have been working hard on this for a very long time. The details are not ready yet. In the development agreement, it mentions stormwater, but it doesn't give any details. It talks about a plan that we haven't seen. I'm not sure you all have seen it, but we don't know what they're trying to do. Those details are a huge piece of this development and need to be in that development agreement, or at least looked at and put in the development agreement. The development agreement has some phrasing in it that I would encourage the council to look at. It's already been referred to tonight, where it says we're going to try this, or we may try that. That is so vague and very unclear and a little bit dangerous for a development of this size. That needs to be nailed down, especially for the stormwater problems. This is not something we want to trip over a year from now, a year and a half from now. What the association really wants is for this to be figured out and be developed in a way that is safe for stormwater purposes. What they don't want, and this is the whole point of the stormwater problem, they don't want it to come back to the town, to be put back in the town's lap in a year or two or three when we do have this problem, when we have a fire hose that's shooting out towards this neighborhood that could have been solved now. Time's up. I have a couple people that would yield their time if the council will permit that. Not allowed to
Are
do
we
the time?
allowed to? You guys can change the rules if you want. That's up to you, though.
I have about 2 more minutes if you don't mind.
I'll hear you out. I want to hear what you have to say. So if it's okay with council, I'll just.
Representing the entire HOA.
Right. So
Thank you
you
very
got
much.
3 more minutes.
Thank you very much. What we don't want anybody to be in the position of is a couple of years from now to be back here when the developer has spent $500,000, $1 million starting this, and now we've got this problem. Because what we're afraid of, the biggest fear is that they come back and they need a change. They need a variance. They need some modification to the plan that we could have fixed now and could cause more harm in the future. We want certainty. Everyone in the room wants certainty want certainty now. So that's point number one is stormwater, by far the most important, and they actually picked up on it in their presentation. Number two is the sewer. I've watched all the videos for your all's council meetings. I'm aware that that's a county issue, it's not your issue, but I do want to point out that that problem hasn't been solved. There is a challenge to some of their access across the association's common area that I think they're going to bump into. And to the extent that they want to move forward with rezoning tonight when there's maybe a challenge later for sewer, that's certainly their decision to make, but the council may want to take that into consideration. The last piece is the connectivity for the trail. If that weighs in your mind at all as to the connectivity for the trail, there's currently discussions going on and some questions that the association has about the connectivity on the association's common area, and that may become a bigger issue. And so if that is weighing in your mind on whether to rezone this or not, there's a question mark on that connectivity. We would suggest there are two choices for the council tonight from our perspective. Option number one is put this back in the planning's hands and let's figure out the stormwater. Let's just figure it out. Let's make it certain. Second, if that's not an option, that we just wanted to make it public and on the record that we've raised this issue over the entire duration of these council meetings. We're making it strongly tonight that stormwater is a significant issue so that if they have to come back to the town at some point in the future, the council will remember that and the minutes will reflect that so that whatever has to be discussed at that point can be discussed in that light. Thank you.
I do have a question for you. The connectivity on the trail, at the front of the property?
It is, where am I? It's around the other one. It's the Zepsa properties where it connects.
Okay.
The one that's already been rezoned.
That doesn't have anything to do with this property.
Right. But if people want to walk from this property over to the Zepsa property and get on the trail, that may become an issue.
You guys have stated multiple times that walkability is important.
Hold on. He has the floor right now. I don't know if you want to take a seat and you have your name, you
You
can.
requested I join if questions were asked.
If the council's open for it, she may be able to answer your question.
So she's with your firm?
She's with the board of directors.
Oh, okay. So
Yes, sir.
you live
Would you like to introduce yourself so that
My
everyone
name
knows
is
who you
Kristen
are?
Conway. I'm the vice president of the HOA at PAM.
Okay, so back to the trail. I'm confused on the trail in front of this property here, what that has to do with the preserve.
Right. My point was, I suspect there's some idea that people that are in this area might want to use the trail or come from the trail to get here. It's not connected adjacent. It's not adjacent to it. But if they want to get there through a trail or use the trail, that may become an issue in the future.
So just the sidewalk in front is what you're referring
No,
to?
no, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. No, this is the Greenway Trail.
I'm very confused.
So,
I believe that's a separate project than the Greenway Trail.
There is no Greenway Trail with this project.
That's correct.
Okay, so then I don't know what the question is, or I don't know what the concern is.
Yeah, my point was, if it had any weight at all in your mind that that rezoning this property so that the people enjoying this property could also enjoy the trail immediately?
Oh, yeah,
That might be a
that's not been taken into consideration considering we're trying to finish the loop trail that has been in the works long before this project has, so, okay,
I
thank you.
understand. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for? Nope, okay.
All right. No more questions? Thank you very much for the extra time.
In council, I would state that stormwater was already addressed in the plan about their compliance with our local regulations and state regulations, and there will be details during the construction documents that will be furthered and discussed. And then the sewer, and council kind of acknowledged that it's really a separate issue with the county. I don't think their utilities are relevant to your zoning because you're to look to see if it's in compliance, and if they can't get zoning, then it won't be developed.
Thank you, Chapel.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Austin, who do we have next?
I don't know who it was that yielded time, but the only two people signed up was Kristen Conway and Vom Siva Murray. Okay.
Okay,
Then I think you're good to proceed, Mr. Mayor.
no one else. All right.
So you need to declare the hearing closed, and you can proceed to deliberation.
All right, I'm going to declare these hearings, public hearings closed, and it's up for a discussion between council at this point. Anyone want to go first?
Hey, I'll jump in here, but I do want to thank the developer. I do also want to thank all of the residents. I know that many of the folks of the preserve have, been a part of that process. And, I recall, I think it was, many of them showed up at an early coffee with council with us. And they said, well, if it were you, how would you approach this? And I said, well, you may have some folks that are just opposed to it and they might oppose it. I said, but make sure that you're also working down the track and having conversations with the developer in parallel. Because, if it does become a project that happens, you want to make sure that you have the best impact as a community that you can on having a good product as the outcome. And, at least at this point, as we continue to deliberate, I think I've seen, especially when you look at those elevations and, the original ones that kind of looked much more like Blakeney than maybe some of the areas of Marvin, and now look, much more, I would say, and with kind of the feel and flavor of Marvin. I just, I want to commend them on that. I think we saw a little bit more parking than some of the earlier ones. So, that there might have been a little bit more parking in there, but I do agree that hooking it in with the village's parking lot as well makes it safer for both people going into the village, and that part about why there's not per se a number of parking spots dedicated within the Heritage District, because there's going to be some shared parking. And I think to some degree, there may be nights that we have a meeting or something like that some of our residents might be able to benefit from some overflow parking from their site, mostly weeknights and things like that. So I just want to thank the community and the developer for at least working together at this point to try to make what I've seen develop as a better project than when it started. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Any other council members? Refresh my memory, if, say, they have a restaurant, what's the time, shut-off time? Like, closing time for, is there a?
There's no hours of operation as part of one of the conditions for this rezoning. There's noise ordinance and other aspects that would apply, but there's not necessarily any hours of operation that were discussed as a condition.
One question. The underwater storage for the runoff, what is the capacity of that?
Hello. It is 60,000 cubic feet.
60,000?
Yes.
Another question.
Yep.
What is the pressure in there when it starts coming out? Is it controlled, or you turn a valve, and at what rate does it empty?
Yes, so per Marvin's regulations, you cannot outfall at a rate higher than it is in the existing condition. So the water that is being seen at those two outfall points, that flow rate will be the same. It will not be a fire hose if it is not a fire hose
That's what
today.
it's not going to be a fire hose?
No.
Okay, that's...
And Mayor and Council, I just want to, Chaplain kind of mentioned this, but if the standard process is the property is rezoned, obviously, then they have the zoning rights to develop it. There's still the construction documents, that aspects of it have to be reviewed of compliance by us or and other applicable agencies, and they have to obtain those permits before they start moving dirt. In the instance where, as mentioned kind of in one of the comments, like if the stormwater, if they cannot get it to comply with our ordinance as well as DEQ to get permit approval, they can't develop it, or they would have to come back and go through this process again to amend it, so where they would be able to develop it. And same thing for sewer. is obviously you're not seeing septic on the site. If they were unable to obtain the sewer permits to extend the sewer with the county, they're most likely not going to develop it. So all those would be a next step in the process after the rezoning, which they would have to obtain anyway. And we do not require, I don't know of any really municipality that requires having the full engineered stormwater plans as part of the rezoning.
And Hunter, what are we, what plan are we, would this fall under the 100-year plan, 50-year plan? I think
Correct.
we're at 100-year, right?
Ours goes up to the 100, which is
Which is
higher than
than
DEQ
the county.
and
the
the
state.
state, yeah, correct.
Okay, so we're at, they have to conform to a 100-year plan.
So what that means, and what she was saying with the capacity, is meaning that these stormwater facilities are built to hold a 100-year storm event. So pretty much the biggest event that, I mean, outside of the 500, but, a very large event. And as Skylar she presented this during planning board, that number of what the 100-year storm varies. So the more significant rains we have, that average of that 100-year storm goes up. So it makes it, I mean, they have to build it based off of the numbers from the National Weather Service, or, yeah. No, and so it's not like just a set, this is a 100-year event. It varies based off weather patterns and what the, those significant events that occur, they're documented, and obviously it's a federal regulated thing, so.
And Hunter, it's not just with the Village of Marvin, it's also DEQ is very active and very involved in all of this.
Correct. NCD, so even though our stormwater regulations go above and beyond DEQ, NCDEQ is still the permit agency that issues the sedimentation erosion control permit as well as the post-construction stormwater permit, which they would issue to the developer. And then there's maintenance and all that other stuff that's terms of those permits that they have to comply with even after the development's completed.
So they see this stuff all the time, every day, many, many times every day, and they're the ones that sign off on this, correct?
Correct. Like I said, and we review it too because ours goes above theirs.
Thank you. I just wanted clarification on that because I remember hearing that recently, that we are at a higher level than most, and a lot of people don't know that in the community, that is what we're looking at. Any other questions for staff or the applicant? All right, I guess we're ready for a vote.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance approving a development agreement and conditional zoning map amendment CZ-2025-1 to rezone the 3.022 acres located at 10018 Marvin School Road, Marvin, North Carolina 28173, parcel 06-225012, from rural residential RR to Marvin Heritage District commercial only, MHD-CZ, and adopt the following land use consistency and reasonableness statement, and authorize the mayor to execute the development agreement.
So moved.
Further discussion?
And the reasonableness, and that's the one in the packet?
I don't see it in the packet, hang on.
That's the proposed one in the packet with the findings?
That's the draft motion I just read.
That's it.
There's an attachment, should be the last attachment for that agenda item. I don't
I
know.
was just confirming you're incorporating that by reference.
You want me to say it?
No, you just have to confirm that's the one,
That's
the proposed one. Thank you.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, or hearing one, I guess. Oh, that was an aye?
Hold on, ask John if that was.
John, is that a yes or a no?
Aye.
That's a yes, okay. Opposed? Hearing none? A little delay there, sorry, John. The motion passes, and congratulations, and thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to our next public hearing is to consider the adoption of an ordinance extending the corporate limits of the Village of Marvin to annex the 28 2.11 acre property located at 9802 Ray Road, parcel 06-198002A. Hunter,
So just to clarify, obviously, or not obviously, but the village has received an annexation petition to annex and rezone the property there located on the corner of Ray Road and Tom Short. This public hearing is specifically for the annexation of the property. After this public hearing ends, we will then move into the public hearing for the rezoning of the property, and then council will make, the motions to vote on the annexation and rezoning at that time. So the short end of it is that this is an annexation petition that's been submitted by the owners of the property, which is RTS Investors 2 LLC. This parcel is located at 9802 Ray Road, which is on the northeast side of Ray Road, adjacent to the Somerset neighborhood. This process is basically following the procedure outlined in the state statute, as well as our annexation agreement with the town of Weddington. The clerk has completed the certificate of sufficiency, which is in your guys' packet, as well as the council has adopted a resolution fixing the date of this public hearing. Next steps are to conduct the public hearing and then vote to either approve the annexation petition, which would bring the property into the village of Marvin, or to not. And if approved, then the clerk will file that appropriate paperwork with the Secretary of State office and the Register of Deeds, Board of Election, and the tax office. Is there any questions on that from council regarding what this public hearing specifically for? It's just the annexation of the property.
assume everyone's clear on that? Okay.
Anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, if we want to go to the public,
I'm sorry, okay. I just felt like we were moving on.
we've got Caroline Katz, 225 Tyndale Court.
Can I ask a quick question before my time starts? Did you just say that you're voting for both the annexation and the rezone? So you're going to vote after my talk and then hear more and then vote again on the rezone?
They'll do both votes after this last public hearing. That way, if
Oh, we're doing both?
you'll do
votes
both
after
votes at the very end of the next public hearing.
Oh,
It's two separate votes.
that's what I wanted to
Yes.
clarify.
Okay.
Okay, can I start?
So
my
you're here
timer
to
now?
talk about the annexation, I see.
I mean, it's kind of both.
Okay.
So, to be fair, sorry.
You're good.
It's, okay. My name is Caroline. I live in the Somerset neighborhood, and I've spoken at previous meetings about the proposal at Ray Road and Tom Short. Tonight, I want to focus on one clear truth: this plan is simply not ready. Let's start with the facts. The developer's special use permit with Union County has expired. No new application has been submitted to Union County. They are relying entirely on Marvin to annex this parcel and approve a plan that is too dense and without an actual commercial plan. There's no detailed commercial site plan, no confirmed tenants except a likely Harris Teeter, and no clear phasing. What's likely to happen, because we've seen this before, is the developer starts building 75 high-density residential units right away and leaves the commercial portion as an undeveloped mud pit for years. Because that's what Marvin is risking: a blight on our gateway intersection and a long-term embarrassment to this council. This is not speculation. The Charlotte Observer reported that Rayleigh Miller, with partner Daniel Levine, proposed a large mixed-use development at Fairview and Providence over a decade ago. And they boasted 6-story apartments with 100,000 square feet for retail and a new Harris Teeter. This 11-acre, highly valuable property went undeveloped for over a decade, tied up in years of neglect and legal disputes among the partners. It remains a blight on that area and has been nothing more than a giant patch of grassy cement for over the last 10 years, and as of just 2024, Rayleigh Miller is no longer involved. This is not a partner you should trust without a clear plan to manage what will be the most prominent commercial corner in Marvin. As for the residential, you're being asked to approve a plan that with 6.5 homes per acre, but residential does not automatically benefit the town financially. It increases service costs and traffic. Commercial, on the other hand, provides tax revenue and no demand for schools. And this thinking has been confirmed by members of this council. Commercial is valuable to the village of Marvin. Why approve a plan that prioritizes residential? Fewer homes and more intentional commercial would better serve Marvin economically and in keeping with what residents want. And not to belabor the density point, but Marvin residents, and it seems most of the council, are not interested in something so dense. Over the last few months, as I've spoken with Marvin residents and the council, I've learned that Marvin Gardens is a bit of a headache. Marvin Gardens sits on 38 acres with 25 single-family homes and about 110,000 square feet of commercial space. By contrast, this proposed development covers only 28 acres but proposes 75 units, residential units, including 63 townhomes and 165,000 square feet of commercial space. Why on earth would anyone want a mega version of Marvin Gardens if everyone seems to complain about it? Why approve a project that so clearly overdevelops? We keep hearing that if Marvin says no, they'll just build something worse, but that's not true. Their Union County permit has expired. They're not entitled to build anything without starting over with the county. They don't want to be in Union County. They are too limited there. They want to be in Marvin. You hold all the leverage. Please use it. Don't rush to approve something that isn't ready. A yes vote now will tie Marvin to an unfinished, unbalanced plan with no guarantees. You have the power to demand a better plan. You owe nothing to the developers, and you have a responsibility to represent your constituents. Please vote no on this current proposal and have the developers come back. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Austin, anyone else?
Next is Cassandra Wizelka.
Make-
Sorry if I butchered that.
Okay.
Hi,
How are you?
good evening. My name is Cassandra, and I'm speaking tonight as a parent with children in the Marvin Cluster Schools, as well as the former PTO president of Rayview Elementary. And I'm urging you to wait on this annexation. The proposed development as it stands is too dense. While some commercial development here might be appropriate, stacking 75 townhomes and houses, which will sell to families who are seeking our top-rated schools, is extremely dense for this location. Marvin Village's own land use plan from 2020 says that Union County schools are, quote, generally considered to be an excellent system and thus attracting new residents with children. That's why everyone wants to live here, and this strength is the reason why we need to be more careful. Our Marvin Ridge School Cluster is already overcrowded. Marvin Ridge Middle School is currently at 90.9% capacity, and Marvin Ridge High is at 106.1% capacity, and has already stopped accepting transfers due to overcrowding. Adding more families to the Marvin Cluster Schools without a firm plan will have direct consequences for the students who are already here. UCPS has explicitly stated and even warned that more development, quote, exacerbates problems. There'll be mobile classrooms, overburdened cafeteria and food services, limited access to media centers and libraries, and limited parking and drop-off spaces. These are real impacts that will undoubtedly hurt students and teachers. Something else to note is if the village annexes this land now, the new homes will get priority access to those Marvin schools, while the kids who live in Somerset and Hunter Oaks who are already in these schools could face rezoning because they're in unincorporated Union County. That means that current Marvin Ridge Cluster kids could lose seats to newcomers, even though we've put time, money, and energy into these schools. That's not just bad planning, it's unfair to the students and the teachers. And we've all heard about the school impact study for this area that says only about 15 students will be added. But to be honest, studies don't always reflect reality. So for example, you can look to the townhomes next to Andy's across Ray Road. There's about 30 townhomes in that space, and on any given morning, there's about 30 students waiting for the bus. I also want to discuss the effects traffic will have to this area. So some have suggested that commercial development causes more congestion than residential, and respectfully, that's not what traffic engineering proves. Commercial traffic is staggered throughout the day, and residential traffic peaks, especially during school and work commutes. Have any traffic counts been done here during true peak times? We cannot rely on data taken during spring break or during midday off-peaks. We need accurate counts from school weekdays. Adding 75 homes here, likely with 150 plus adults commuting, and of course dozens of children going to school, will magnify those peak jams. So for comparison, the existing Marvin Town Center, where CVS and Kohl's are, is 120,000 square feet of retail. This new proposal would almost double the area's retail footprint, potentially including a grocery anchor. Traffic engineers have shown a grocery anchored shopping center will generate far more daily traffic than the equivalent area of housing. So in other words, even without the homes, the planned retail itself will be a heavy traffic generator, and with the homes on top of that, mornings and evenings will become so congested. I just wanted to say that our community values smart growth and excellent schools, and we can accommodate development here, but it must be balanced and well planned.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. All right, motion to.
You don't need a motion. You just
Okay,
close
we're
it.
going to close the public comments period and the public hearing and open it up to council.
consider the motion after the next public hearing. So if you would like, you could go ahead and go on to the next public hearing.
Yes, okay. All right, we're going to go on to the, and we can do that without tabling it?
No, you can just continue. It's a motion. The motion
Okay.
does not have to be in a certain order.
Do you want a motion to move into the next? Okay, all right. I was confusing me how you were coming. Okay, next up, we have the public hearing for CZ-2025-2 Marvin Commons to consider adoption of an ordinance approving the development agreement and rezoning the 28.11 acres at 9802 Ray Road, parcel 061980002A from Union County B2, PUD 6-B2 to Marvin Mixed Use to CZ MU-2-CZ. All right.
Okay, so I'm going to let the applicant do their presentation to start, and then we will move into the public hearing portion. So I'll
Okay.
turn it over to Bridget.
Thank you.
You can start. You'll just have to tell us next slide.
All right.
Oh, great. Thank you. No, it's fine. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the board. My name is Bridget Grant. I'm a land use consultant with Moore & Van Allen. It is a pleasure to be here tonight on behalf of Jones Homes, Rayleigh Miller, CEC Environmental Design. Our architecture team is Robbie Johnson. Kimberly Horn is here to address any traffic concerns, and I'm also here with my colleague, Lisa Thompson with Moore & Van Allen. The reason we're here tonight is something I don't get to say very often. This is actually a downzoning of sorts. It is still entitled, though there are times that vesting runs out on an older approved plan. It doesn't mean you don't have development rights anymore. It means that you might have to adhere to some new standards regarding stormwater or buffers, but essentially you still have entitlements, and that's the case here. We're looking to rezone in Marvin to re-envision the corner to mixed-use and walkable development. So when we started this development, we started to look at some parts that we thought would be important, that would be a downzoning, and that would be more appropriate for the corner. So we're proposing residential adjacent to residential. We're decreasing the overall intensity of the development by decreasing some of the commercial uses and adding in residential. That's considered a decrease in intensity by land use perspective. It is a reduction in the overall amount of commercial that's permitted on the site. The traffic is down 38% overall. That's trips overall. Traffic is also down during peak hours because you have to consider, we do traffic studies when school is in. There are a lot of criteria. It's the one time NCDOT and your own town staff have the ability to work with developers to get improvements done by the development team. So they want it to be done during peak times. They want it to be done during the school year. And they base the improvements on the busiest times of the day. And so that's what we did in this situation. We also went into it eliminating the connection to Tintail Hall Lane, and we're annexing to allow liquor by the drink. We were very honest about that during the community meeting. We think that that helps bring a different caliber of restaurants and retail to the area that we think is a great fit for this area. So I think you all are familiar with where the site is. It's located at the northwest corner of Ray and Tom Short. This is the previously rezoned approved plan in Union County. One of the things that I want to point out, I know there's been a lot of conversation about the size of the buffer that was included on this previously approved plan in Union County. It's very easy to see. It's because you had large retailers with their back of house backing up to single-family residential. So that's where their dumpsters, their trash cans, their loading docks, everything was adjacent to the single-family residential, which likely necessitated a larger buffer. In lieu of doing that, we've put the transition of residential against residential in this location. You can see that the approved rezoning also has that connection that we've eliminated. There was a fuel station that's approved. You can see it drawn in with the pumps right on the front of the site. And then all of those green boxes are essentially a little deceiving. They're all out parcels. It's not open space. And so that was set up for other out parcel uses. We broke the site into 3 development areas, trying to develop the character of each. Development Area A has single-family homes, that's in blue. Development Area B is more of the pink magenta, that's toward the back, that's where we've proposed the townhomes. And Development Area C is limited to the commercial. We do have two different conceptual site plans, one that takes into consideration the single family stays the same, the townhomes stay the same, but you can see we have a different layout in the commercial that lends itself to some smaller commercial spaces. All in all, our total commercial is 165,000 square feet of commercial. The current rezoning supports 275,000 square feet. We have 13 single-family homes and 62 townhomes. The other option does contemplate our ability to have a grocery-anchored site. It still provides you with the same mix of single-family homes and townhomes. You can see that in lieu of the connection to Tinton Lane, we've made that our park and amenity space. We've made that an open space area, and we've continued to have open space and green space throughout the site as sort of an organizing element. As I mentioned, the buffers have been a very important part of the conversation and how we handle the relationship between the proposed residential and the existing residential. So this shows a cross-section of the single family to the existing residential. We've increased our buffer from 20 feet to a minimum of 25 feet with an average of 30 feet. That essentially means there are going to be quite a few areas that have a buffer that's larger than the 30 feet. I think Hunter might be able to speak to, I can confirm we're meeting the buffer requirements in this particular zoning district. We're doing the type B. He can speak to that if there are additional questions. As I mentioned, we had to do a traffic study as part of the conditional zoning process. So we studied 9 different intersections and access points. In order for us to advance and get to COs, we have to mitigate all of our impacts, considering the most intense commercial uses on the site and considering the single family and the townhome development for each intersection and access point that's described. We have our traffic study engineer here with Kimberly Horn, and I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any of your questions. This is just a diagram. It's very difficult for most of us to understand, but this just shows you some of the proposed mitigation. It starts to point out where there are turn lanes in red, where traffic signals are existing or where they'll be added. Again, happy to answer this in greater detail, but it really just calls out where we're proposing additional turn lanes and our through movements. It's always important when we're looking at new development to consider how it fits into the context of the surrounding community. So these are a couple of the elevations that show you what the residential is proposed to look like in the area. I think you'll find it's in keeping with what you would expect for your community. We've also got a few samples of our commercial elevations, both 1- and 2-story options, to show you that we're trying to build in some optionality and consistent character. And as much as I like looking at good conceptual elevations that are sketches, I think it's great to look at the built environment. And these are probably some places that you're familiar with. We aren't saying we're going to build exactly this. What we're trying to show you is the level of quality that you should expect to see here. So the one in the lower right-hand corner, that's the intersection of Colony and Ray. You can also see there are parts of Blakeney. And this is really just intended to show you a variety of materials and attention to detail, pavers, landscaping, the types of details, again, that you would expect to see in Marvin. This is really our attempt to focus on this being a lifestyle corner. It's a little bit different than what was proposed in the original several years ago in the county. It's a much smaller scale that lends more to the lifestyle options rather than the big box options, and we think that's more appropriate here. Our vision was to create retail that supports the surrounding community, but also creates a walkable environment. We did make some changes based on community feedback. We had a pretty long community meeting. We had the opportunity to speak with residents after. We've continued to work with staff, and overall, we've made the following changes based on community feedback that are reflected in the most recent plans that we submitted. We have increased that overall buffer adjacent to the existing residential. We've narrowed the permitted uses, which means we've included a list of prohibited uses that we don't think would be appropriate in this location. We've added limited hours of operation. We know, again, nobody wants to hear dumpsters at 2 o'clock in the morning or that type of activity, so we've included narrow hours of operation. We've committed to full brick townhomes. We've increased the rear yard setback from 10 feet to 25 feet on the single family, and we did eliminate service station, which in your ordinance is defined as automobile repair services minor as well, which is translated to a gas station.
And just to clarify, that 25-foot rear setback, is a condition that's specifically on the detached single-family homes, so the 13, because the minimum per the ordinance was 10 feet. However, they've agreed to have their minimum setback for the principal structure for 25 feet. On the yes, the detached. The townhomes, minimum setback is still 10 feet, just because of the size of the lot and how they're proposed. But the concern there, if you go back to the site plan,
Sorry, I'm going back.
or that
I
cross-section.
lost the presentation view, but
Right.
Can you stop there?
yeah.
I think we've all received a lot of information and a lot of feedback on, vote no, and we hear it all. But the one thing, when I go through everything and I look at it, and I've met with some residents and I've talked with some, and I hear numbers, but I don't know that we're talking apples to apples. And if you could provide some clarity to, when you say setbacks and you say buffers and you give all this, I don't know if this is the best slide to do, but
I'll go to the
provide
cross-section.
all right, that's a good slide right there, that provides the clarity on, is it, if I look at simplicity for me, building to building, home to home, whatever the case may be, is it going to be 20 feet from the back of a thing to the back of a house?
No, we've got a 25-foot Class B buffer yard before you get to the backyard of the residence and before you get to our buildings. There's also additional space.
So if you add all those spaces up, is it going to be, is it the closest, is it going to be 30 feet?
They actually have it estimated at 75 feet.
Okay.
Now, I will add, and real quick,
Because again, that's where I think the confusion comes in, and when everyone's throwing out numbers, is it from property line, is it a buffer, is it building to building, is it whatever the case may be, and that's where the confusion comes in. And I do believe, and listen, I'm right here, I will be the first to tell you, if somebody was 20 feet behind me, if you want my vote, it's no. It is.
75 feet is different.
However, I want the facts to come out to say when you add it all together, the property line from back of a building to residential, whatever the case may be, what is that number? Is it ever going to be 20 feet? And I'm just going to keep going up the scale. Is it 20 feet? And the answer is,
So the way we drew this out, and I don't know if you can see my pointer, but this is the perspective of an existing home. And so the minimum distance from an existing home to the property line is indicated as 15 feet.
And
So
we're talking about the backyard.
existing, yes,
But-
yes,
but that-
backyard,
Side yard, backyard.
well,
backyard.
okay, and that was set by Somerset, so that's not,
Side yard?
yes.
Sorry, that one's a 15-foot side yard.
If I
So
can-
this is the side yard right here, 15-foot. Then there's a 20-foot 25 Class B buffer. And in that's where we're intending to have the landscaping, much like what's depicted right here on the bottom. And then after the buffer, we have a 35-foot backyard.
so we're talking 75.
Yes, sir. That's from the side, and that's our tightest condition.
Now, what is it with the townhomes?
It's even greater, and so this, what I want to clarify here, so this cross-section, the Somerset neighborhood was platted with an 8-foot, or a minimum of an 8-foot side setback. There's,
That's not,
no, well, I'm just 8, but let me just,
Are you saying 8 or 80?
8.
Okay, 8.
Somerset,
Correct, but let me just explain, this is part of the reason why it was recommended to have a rear setback condition of 25 feet, because with the we don't have a survey of where those houses actually sit. They have to legally, unless they were non-conforming, have to be 8 feet off that side property line, which would be the property line of the subject development. So you have 8 feet, then you would have the 25-foot minimum buffer width, and then a minimum 25-foot rear setbacks. You're at 58 feet right there from the back of a house to the side. When you get up to the townhomes, it's even further than that, just because the rear setback for Somerset is at, once again, this is a minimum of 25 feet, but on average, those homes along Tinton, or Whittingham, sorry, sit 50 to 80 feet back. The back of their house to their property line sits 50 to 80 feet back. So it's even greater of building separation in the townhomes, even though the townhome minimum setback is 10 feet. You would still have 10 feet, then the buffer, and then the 50 to 80 feet of the existing structures in Somerset.
So you're saying from structure to structure, townhome, to residence, Somerset, you're talking about 80 feet?
No, 80 feet plus the setback and the buffer, so you're talking about 130 feet or so.
I don't want to say anything approximate because we don't have surveys of those properties on Whittingham, but based off of looking at GIS and taking the approximate, they sit back, like I said, approximately 50 feet. The Somerset houses sit back 50 feet from their property line. Just take that as that number. Then you have the 25-foot buffer. Then you would have the 10-foot setback for the townhomes. Then you would have the back of the townhome. So that right there is 85 feet.
So again, what I'm trying to drill down on, so everyone is clear on the numbers themselves. Because I've inundated with 20 feet. And again, I'll be the first to tell you, if it were 20 feet, I'd be absolutely no. But it's not, and I'm one here that says, I want to base my decision off of facts, and 100% of the facts. Not 90%, because the 10% typically is the most important. When you have an agenda, you typically leave out the last 10%. And listen, I'm here just going, I want to hold you accountable to what is there. But I want everyone to understand the numbers, because I guarantee you when people leave here, there'll still be people saying, my house or my whatever is only 20 feet from the next townhome or the next building, or whatever the case may be. So before we leave, I just want this council to be completely comfortable with what you're telling me here and how the numbers line up.
And it's a condition of the zoning. And so we've submitted this plan, it's site-specific.
Right.
We've committed to, and the notes back up what isn't readable in the plan, that we have that 25-foot Class C buffer, and then we have that backyard condition.
Yeah, Mark Kahn with CEC. I'll just try to shed a little bit more light on this. So what you're seeing on the screen here, this really is our tightest condition, where we have a side yard for a house that the side is butting up against the property line.
I'm familiar with it.
Where we have the townhomes, that's backing up to homes that are backing up to a rear yard. So the distance from the actual building to that property line is more like 40 to 50 feet. Then we have our 25-foot buffer and another 10 feet. So you're looking at more like 80 feet,
Right.
if not more, from the rear of those homes backing up to the townhomes to the point where you get to the edge, the face edge of the townhome itself. Yes, correct.
So the ones that are probably most concerning is, I'm going to, if I don't have the one on the bottom left here.
We tried to highlight that with red, just show you that this red line
Right.
shows you this section across
Can you
here.
go back to the overall plan, so I think you can see then the townhomes.
And those are actually going to be the closest ones
Right.
of all.
See,
Let's
here you-
just be honest.
Yes.
So if you look at the townhomes here at the top of the screen, you can see the actual homes themselves are set further back in the Somerset neighborhood than this very tight condition we have over adjacent to the single family. So your brick and mortar length there, it varies because of the depth of the homes in Somerset, but it's somewhere between 80 and 105 feet.
That's a far cry from 20.
Sorry?
It's a far cry from 20.
Yes.
I'm just, and again, it's the ones back here that are the closest. However, the homes that are there, it's a side yard.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So that's the side of their home, not the rear.
Correct.
Of the home, just for clarification.
Now, I have a question. With the last coffee with council,
Yes.
a couple of the residents, I had asked them straight out. I said, you got a Aristide, a glue factory that's 60 feet, because the whole thing was they wanted to preserve a 60-foot buffer. And I asked, what would you rather prefer? Would you rather trees, 60 feet, I guess, of trees, knowing there's a glue factory on the other side? Are you happy with that? Or would you rather have this? Now, again, they got caught up in the 20-foot thing, which all came from the planning board meeting. That was another situation. But the question I got is, what is the original plan? What was committed in terms of the buffer was 60 feet from residential?
No residential.
Oh, commercial.
No, commercial to residential was 60 feet. Now, everybody was under the assumption the trees are gonna stay. There's no commitment to the trees staying, correct? No, there's no obligation on the part of the developer to keep those trees as a buffer to the, you know, all the commercial,
Yeah,
correct?
any development that happens within that buffer, any grading, you know, and the image that we have for the buffer exhibit, it's gonna be planted back at a very thick, opaque, evergreen wall, basically, between the two uses. Yeah.
Yours.
I'm talking about the 60, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking, I'm
Oh,
sorry
about
if
the
I'm
60.
switching gears.
Yeah.
Because this is a whole thing. The residents of Somerset have been wanting to, you know, for us to say no on this whole thing. And mainly because of the commercial, that they would rather have commercial versus the residential. They want a 60-foot buffer.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that in some of the meetings I've had personally, that they have wanted, they would be happy with trees, and the commercial, the original plan, okay, the original permit, they would be more happy with that. But what I'm asking is 60 feet, since we're talking about residences to end of property lines, et cetera, is the developer under any obligation to keep the trees if it were commercial? And- With a 60-foot buffer?
No,
No, I don't,
they're
I can't
not with it.
answer that.
It would be under the county standards, and oftentimes, and I'll speak generally, under county standards, if something was disturbed, it may have to be replanted. It's not a guaranteed, like a tree save zone, but I would have to look into that with the county.
I will say that the county standard is now 10 feet.
Yes, that's what I was getting ready to say. The
That's
county
right.
standards to residential to commercial is 10 feet. You have your type A plantings and you have your type B plantings. Type A is one tree every 50 feet and then a 3-foot high hedge. B is every 40 feet with a 3-foot high hedge. The opacity, is that the right word?
Yes.
Thank you. The opacity is not going to be anywhere close to what this proposal will be.
Correct.
Which is?
60% opacity with all evergreens.
I would, this
Ish.
plan will be more 100% opacity. I mean, it will be all evergreen, yes.
All evergreens, so, okay, so we're going from 60% opacity to close to 100.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the main thing is, the obligation is they're thinking if the residential wasn't there, that they'd have 60 feet. And it's not necessarily, you just said, the county only requires a 10-foot buffer if it was commercial.
Well, and I just want to clarify, the 60-foot is based off their existing SUP. The legality, if it's still whatever, is what it is.
That's what
But
I can't speak to.
what it,
All the commitments of that plan.
what it specifically states on that SUP is a 60-foot building setback from the commercial building to the residential property line. And it basically overlaps with a 60-foot land use buffer, but like I said, regarding the plantings, tree save, all that stuff of what the county says, it's unclear without knowing, but once again, if that's still in place or not, I mean, it is what it is.
When it comes to that buffer, is it fair to say that, given that the applicants are want to annex to Marvin, they're gonna have to hit a higher hurdle when it comes to distance than what the county would.
Our ordinance is going to be, once again, kind of, as Bridget was saying, municipal ordinances are going to be a lot more, detailed compared to county ordinances, because most counties are, I'm not going to say vague, but it's a county-wide thing. Yeah, so with that being said, what our ordinance states is that this proposed development would have to have the classified type B buffer, which is a 30-foot average, minimum of 25 feet, up to, I think, maximum 50 or 40. Either way, the average of the buffer has to be 30 feet. They have provided that buffer type where it's 25 feet in certain areas, but then it's wider in others, so the average is actually, what, 31?
31.5.
So they now comply with that. Our ordinance gets into the standards of the opaqueness on top of the density of plantings. I want to say the type B has 8 canopy trees planted per every 100. So there is more the difference between B and C, even though the opaqueness was 60%. Obviously, the width and the density of plantings and type of plantings is higher or for the type B, which is what they are proposing.
Yes, can you go maybe a few slides down that said, I think it was changes based on community feedback? The narrow permitted uses, I think you covered, can you cover again, just so the narrow permitted uses?
Yeah, so the applicant, based off the discussion, from the neighborhood meetings, some feedback from the public, as well as discussion with planning board, staff as well as the planning board recommended a list of uses for the applicant to restrict themselves, because they can do that as part of a mutually agreed upon condition. I can read those, but essentially, these uses are permitted in the MU2 district, but since with their conditional zoning, they are restricting the following uses, meaning they are not permitted for this development if it's approved. Bingo games, bowling lanes as a principal use, coin-operated amusement, game room video game, coin-operated as a principal use, daycare center, home occupation, dwelling multifamily 8 units or less, dwelling multifamily apartments or condos, family care facility, group care facility, hotel, motel, Holiday Inn, laundromat, coin-operated, nursing home, assisted living, service station, automobile repair service minor, which does include gas station and fuel pumps. It also includes your like quick lube, oil change, those type establishments. Sign fabrication, self-storage with interior access, self-storage with outdoor storage of vehicles. This will be a big one. Theater, truck and utility and trailer rental leasing, warehouse, self-storage, and assembly of components manufactured off-site final, in addition to batting cages outdoor and billiard parlor. Those uses have been agreed upon by the applicant. They are written into the development standards on the rezoning plan as prohibited uses. To clarify too, is that the current, once again, we're just going off of what we know with the county, what was previously approved, is that that SUP allows for a gas station with a convenience store. It also includes a maximum of 3 fast food establishments. They are also proposing limit themselves to 2. They're limiting themselves to 4 drive-through uses, but only 2 of those can be for restaurants on the site. So that's another kind of restriction that's greater than what the county's allowing. And I feel like there's one more. But yeah, so that's kind of some of the significant differences that, based off of what everything discussed, that staff has been working with the applicant and kind of getting all of this incorporated in.
I just want to make the point too, because I know it's down here, the eliminated the gas station. That was something that I know was presented to council about pumps and gas station. And we pushed back on that, I think pretty unanimous, that wasn't there. So I appreciate you, again, listening to our feedback as well. I want to go back up to the brick townhomes, and can we speak more to the development part of that, the residential part of that?
It was something that was specifically committed to just the brick, noting the quality of the homes to be constructed on the site. And so the development team agreed to do full brick townhomes rather than just like a facade, where sometimes they do just the facade and use other siding. And so that's what they agreed to.
So there's an additional cost to that, clearly. And I've had messages that come in that said, maybe we should start at smaller townhomes, smaller condos, maybe less affordable. And I was just like, okay, so you can ballpark me, somebody can ballpark me of what are we looking like? Because if a full brick townhome, they're not going to be, I'm assuming they're going to be.
I get asked this almost every time I sit in front of a council. So far, I've been 100%. Oh, I'm sorry, Rob Kreischer with Jones Homes. I'm sorry. As I've explained at the community meeting, so far I'm 100% incorrect when I try to guess the price of the house, because I just don't know what the materials are. The real features are that we wanted to make sure that it was, in our opinion,
a classy product. That's why we wanted to go with four-side brick. Each of the townhomes will have as a standard elevators in each of the homes, in each of the townhomes. So I'm going to answer it by telling you that the townhomes will exceed $1 million.
So I would have to assume, and again, I'm just assuming, and you know what that means. These aren't first-time buyers. I'm just going to go out on a limb, what I know about the market in residential. These aren't first-time buyers bringing in at 25, 27 years old, coming in with a, barn full of kids.
The answer would be no unless they inherited a lot of money. So no.
But I do know your product, and I think the commitment to doing that is going to be, I know that you'll do a great job with whatever it is. So, but with this slide for me, I just wanted to highlight some of the things that you have addressed in a positive fashion, whereas, and to Hunter's point, there's a huge difference in what the standard we're giving you and the standards that we're imposing upon you, as opposed to if we just go to a lot of the people who have sent me say no, that doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen. I'm going to go out on a limb like I did with the real estate and say that if we say no, that lot is still, something's going to happen to it.
In some ways, when the economy hits and things slow down, that patience ends up getting us a better result. And so in this case, I mean, he's entitled for a gas station and for out parcels along that corner. So, I mean, it's reasonable to assume when you lose the zoning that you would consider what you can do with it.
Yeah, my concern is that the residents, and I'm just plain devil's advocate here, as the old Rain Tree and Arboretum urban legend. There was supposed to be a Belk's going there where Walmart is. So, it's a matter of what we're seeing here versus what's the unknown. Just throwing that out there.
Doing this for a living, I think the number one thing I can say is we can't guarantee the brand. We can't tell you who the tenants are going to be and guarantee that. So what we try to do, to your point, is we raise the bar through conditional zoning. We try to create more certainty. So even if this development team walked away, you've still committed to these buffers. You've still committed to four-sided brick architecture. You've still committed to open space. And just generally, this area, I think, will drive a higher quality, especially with some of the flexibility in this new site design.
Bob, you talk about urban legend about, I was there at the meetings when they announced what they wanted to build. I was also there when all the people gathered and defeated it, and they got a Walmart instead of a Belk's. And that was no urban legend.
So, one thing that did I interrupt you?
No, go right
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Is I'm hearing that the townhomes are going to be towering over the homes on I think it's Whittingham. I think that's the street. So I think, Mark, you had talked about that there would be, well, first, there's a significant fall, but then there would be grading done because you're not going to build a townhome on a hill. And as I drive up Tom Short and I look over at Coles, it's a very flat lot with a very steep hill in the back. I would assume, we all know what happens when we do that, that will be something similar. And I've heard something about possible retaining walls because of how far you're going to bring them down?
Yes, so we need to make up a grade transition at the back of the property in order to have and generate dirt and to essentially balance the site and grade the site. So that's where we're making up that grade transition. Otherwise, we get into a gigantic fill condition if we try to keep that level up there. So some of that, it won't be that full length of that edge, but some of it's going to be 3-to-1 slope, some of it will be retaining wall. So I would say most of the townhomes.
3-to-1 slope.
3-to-1 slope, sorry, sloping down. Everything is sloping towards Ray Road, away from Somerset. So the townhomes along that edge will sit anywhere from 3 to 4 to as many as 7, 8, or 10 feet lower than the adjacent single-family homes.
The base of the home to the base of the home?
Yes.
Say that again,
So
Bridget.
I'm doing the translation from the technical.
Do it into the microphone so people
The
can hear you.
translation is they're gonna sit lower, but it's the base of the home, like the ground floor of the home to the ground floor of the home will be 3 to 7 feet lower. So it's not like the top of the roof is 7 feet lower than their ground. It's a base of the floor to base of the floor.
Okay, got it, thank you.
I have a question about something we haven't talked about. The 2 retention ponds, because there'll be DEQ requirements,
Yes.
and are they gonna be wet or dry?
Well, they'll have to be infiltration ponds, but we are still determining whether they will be wet or dry ponds at this time.
Oh, you haven't decided yet?
No, that'll be fleshed out as part of the construction documents and engineering for the
Okay.
site.
Personal experience.
Yes.
Can we have later on, can we have the documents of as-built as opposed to planned? Because as-built usually on the retention pond changes, in
Yeah,
my
so
experience.
so as part of our construction administration for the project, we will have to have, whatever we design in our package, they're gonna have to go out and survey it. They gotta bring us back the survey data, then we have to verify that they built what we drew, and it holds the same capacity and meets the same requirements that were permitted.
Question, and it's regarding accessing, and I think we were talking about counts, and maybe we have to have someone else up there, but this plan does not allow Tinton Hole Lane to have access any road that connects this plan. However, if it fell under the county, could they go back and ask for that?
They could, because that's what's drawn on the county plan. It's shown as a stub street, which was intended to connect into the site.
Okay, and I think we've heard some in the community that they don't want that connected, so that's a good thing. Let me ask you this. When they do the count, whoever the person is that does the count, when you do your calculations of in and out and stuff, what are you actually calculating? Because I get that you have homes there, because normally it's just all commercial. You have homes there. If you have a Harris Teeter, that's the biggest reason I'm going out of my house is to go shopping. I'm probably walking now to go to Harris Teeter. So do you factor that in anyway when you do your calculations? How does that look?
Yeah, so I mean, in the big picture, I guess, introduce myself. So my name is Thomas Shirley. I'm with Kinley Horn, and we completed the traffic study. Currently, the traffic study is being reviewed by the town and NCDOT, so we're still a couple of months away from having the full review and, of improvements and everything there. But referring to your question, so in general, when we're doing traffic studies, the way we calculate, I guess, projected trip generation is based on a nationally recognized source, ITE. So what they do is essentially conglomerate data from everywhere from a small grocery store to a large grocery store and give you a rate and equation based on square footage for each of those. And so that's how we generated the trip generation for this. And that was, I guess, obviously based on the standards from both NCDOT and other review agencies.
Did you get any reductions, internal capture?
Yes, so we do account for, in that we account for internal capture. So obviously, as you mentioned, if you live right next door, you're going to walk to a Harris Teeter, you're going to walk to whatever it is. And so as part of our trip generation, what we do is we use the ITE data to provide, the general estimate for each land use we're proposing. And then we take reductions. And so reductions, for example, like if you have a fast food restaurant, you're going to assume there's pass-by trips, vehicles who are, traveling along Ray Road, for example, who enter and then continue on the route. Or if you're, whenever you have a mix of land uses like office or retail or single-family residential, you'll assume that there's internal capture between each of those. And so, there's, I guess, nationally and NCDOT recognized methodologies for doing that, which is what we did in this case to account for that.
And this might be a question for you as well.
Yep.
A lot of people are concerned about just the site and the traffic improvements that need to happen.
Yep.
That is going to be coming from NCDOT, correct? Like they will come in, look at all these traffic studies, and they are the ones that make the determination. It's not the village, it's not the developer. This all comes from NCDOT.
Yeah, so essentially what we do with the TIA is we make our initial recommendations, and then NCDOT in their review process will say, hey, we agree, or hey, we don't agree. And with that, they, obviously, we have to come to an agreement with, obviously, village staff and NCDOT as to what makes sense, but we can't, we're not going to just say, hey, we don't want to put this turn lane in and just not put it in. That's not how it works.
Okay, but at the end of the day, it's really, you guys are making a recommendation, and NCDOT is either going to give the thumbs up because it's adequate enough
Yep,
or not.
correct.
Okay, all right.
I have one more question. These homes that are high-end, does that make a difference in the kind of, and I understand about the liquor by the drink, I understand that, but does that make a difference in terms of who you're courting that would go in there, in terms of the retail businesses?
It does. I mean, I think that, and I'm not in the commercial tenant space, but generally speaking, the income of the residents that are in the area impacts the type of tenants that go in the area. I can say that, honestly, I worked for the city of Charlotte when Blakeney was being developed, and at the time, they were anticipating more junior anchors and not the caliber of retail that they ultimately ended up getting there. And it was because of the types of homes that were being built around it.
You went, the one slide that said Development A, Development B, Development C, commercial, townhomes, whatever.
Purple, blue, yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, purple, blue, yellow. Going back to those, what kind of timeframes can you provide? Timeframes on that?
Have you timed phasing yet? I'm going to ask Rob to join me on phasing.
If we are approved, I intend, if I get all the permits, to be, as we say, moving dirt by the end of this year. So that would put us building homes / townhomes in the spring of '26, with residents moving in by the fall of '26. And I would come before the retail part.
And how far after the retail, or how far after you before the commercial?
I think the construction of the retail buildings, not the site work.
I'm
would
so sorry. Could
Oh,
you
I'm sorry.
introduce yourself?
I'll be glad to. I'm David Miller with Rayleigh Miller Properties. I'm sorry. The site work will start at the same time the homes are doing their site work. We're going to grade and do all the site work at the same time. The retail buildings will probably start construction in the middle to end of '26, and it'll take us probably 1 to 3 years, depending on whether there's 1 or 2 phases, to complete the buildings.
You had two proposed projects.
Site plans,
Site
yes.
plans. When will you make a determination on which one you're going to go with? And is then, Hunter, how do we address that?
I'll answer that, and then I'll let you answer this first part. In short, so the two plans you see are kind of conceptual. So they're locked in, part of their development standards and conditions of the 165,000 square feet of commercial retail. They're also then locked in at the maximum building size of that, of any building at 65,000 square feet, and there would only be one. Therefore, the overall kind of then placement in certain things would just have to then kind of comply with the zoning on that aspect, meaning that what you see is what they're intending, but, and David, you can correct me on this, but if they get 2 junior tenants or something like that, it's going to be kind of based off of build to suit kind of on some of that. I mean, I'll let you maybe take it from there, but in short, like, they've set parameters and guardrails up based off the maximum building size, the total square footage, and the overall kind of area where it can be developed. The other aspects that then come into play there, parking, build-to line, landscaping buffer, and all that other stuff, and then how the buildings are kind of placed. If that makes sense.
And that's when we can start talking about lighting and that kind of stuff as well.
Correct. When they pull the permit for, or when they submit the 100% plans, once again, it's a similar condition as the previous rezoning. They have to have a photometric plan, and all that will be reviewed and approved in compliance with our ordinance.
Because again, if I'm looking at the surrounding area, we do want this to be something that's a win-win for everyone, but we need to be aware of, try to be as least,
Context sensitive.
yes.
Context sensitive.
I do thank you for, I know the thing about the gas stations and bringing that up, and I appreciate you, and some of the other issues that we had concerns with, and you've addressed those, certainly with me, with council for the most part. John, go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. Yeah, so, this parcel has been, kind of a hot potato going back 20 years. And, when the Walmart thing first came up, I was HOA president in my neighborhood. And we actually helped to support. I've raised 3 daughters in the last 25 years here from, being born in kindergarten all through, they're almost all out of college now. When this first kind of came back to us again, my first thought was, well, geez, why do we want to kind of hit on this again, because it was the first. Because the first one was the Walmart, the second one, it's not in Marvin. And I thought to myself, the main reason that we would want to do it is to help to be able to look out for our friends and neighbors, the people we go to church with and work with, in Somerset, if we can help to provide a better product. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to receive many emails, contact with contact council, through contact council. Some folks have actually reached out to me via phone, some folks that I know, longtime Somerset residents that my kids went to school with. I've gotten a mix of both, good feedback and bad to this project. But there were 3 or 4 main things that almost all of these emails kind of came out and said. One was the buffers. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding now is what, most of the residents thought was going to be a 20-foot buffer. Now it has to be a minimum of 25, an average of 25, a minimum of 25 with an average of 30. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay. The other big things that they brought up to me were also the height of the buildings. And one of the things that I heard you say just before is that with the grading of this project, you're going to be going anywhere to about 3 to 7 feet below grade from the properties that they adjoin to in Somerset. So, that was one thing. But I also think I saw in some of the drawings that while the Village of Marvin allows now a 45-foot to the midpoint of what would be your largest, residential buildings, the townhomes, it looks like your elevation to the midpoint of those roofs now is really only going to push about 38 feet, not 45, correct?
I could speak on that. So what's provided in the package, yes, was from clarification from the applicant based off of some questions from council and planning board. In short, their measurement for building height was from the grade to the top of the roof. So technically, the way it's measured in our ordinance, they're below the 45. I think the average is like 38 or something on the side. And then I think up to 41, I believe, kind of in the middle. But yeah, so top of the roof is 45, but I know the concern was like, even though the way our ordinance reads, if they would be exceeding 45, but still complying with the ordinance, and the answer is no.
Right, so I think there was some miscommunication at the meeting when we were discussing this, where I voted against a 45-foot height. And the reason why is because according to our ordinance, our ordinance measures from the midpoint between the eave and the peak. So, in essence, a 45-foot maximum height is what you'll find throughout Marvin, because the median height between the eave and the peak is 35 feet, which if your house is 40 feet wide at the base and you go to 35 feet at the median point, your house is going to be 45 foot at the peak. It's basic math. So there was some confusion, and I was confused, and that was the reason why I voted against it. A 45-foot maximum height is better than the 35-foot median, because if you go wider with the house, you can get taller. So I just wanted to clarify that, because that was a mistake that I made understanding what was being proposed.
So with a better understanding of that and understanding that the foundations may be 3 to 7 feet lower, I think that creates less of a concern that these will be towering over the neighborhood homes in Somerset. And the other biggest thing was the gas station, which, you know, I think we've addressed that, of the gas station not being there. So, you know, I'm looking at the 3 or 4 things that I heard the most, and then certainly the buffers, you know, the buffers, the height, the gas station, those were 3 of the biggest 4. I also heard a lot about not wanting Titan Hall to connect through, and that's not in these plans either. So I think we've made a lot of movement. I know council, some people on council, have been very adamant about some of these things. So while residents may have had these concerns over the last couple of weeks, they have been things that we've been working to address in positive ways. And I think the current plan that we're seeing now does reflect that. The other question that I have is the retention ponds, and I don't know that I got an answer to this, but there is a mix of residential development around it and so forth, but will those retention ponds have some sort of fence or something around them, or will they be open?
From an ordinance requirement, once again, and I haven't gotten into my staff report yet, but in short, the ponds are, if they're not fenced and used as a water feature, they count there's a formula, like it's like 40% of the total pond area counts towards the total percentage of the open space. Don't quote me exactly on those numbers, but in short, it's a certain percentage. If they're fenced off, that doesn't count. They would still meet their open space requirement, but I know that was something that was in the original SUP for the county. But we don't require our wet ponds to be fenced. I mean, you can look at all the residential subdivisions in Marvin. At the end of the day, once again, the developer, either the HOA or the total property owners association, however they divvy that up, will hold those post-construction stormwater permits. So if they want to fence it for the liability reasons, go for it.
Oh, when I asked a while ago, they didn't know if it's going to be wet or dry right now.
Correct, and like I said, that as Mark was mentioning, that this will get into, like same as last one, once they move in the 100% plans, if the rezoning is approved, they would then submit those documents for the village to review with their hydro calculations to ensure that it complies with our stormwater ordinance. But the difference of them doing a dry or wet pond, as long as the water is retains on the site and discharges per our ordinance requirement, it doesn't matter how it's designed.
Well, on that note, just from my personal experience, I would prefer they be wet ponds, just for the simple fact that I've seen a lot of dry retention ponds that retain a lot of moisture and create a lot of impacts such as mosquitoes and other things, and they are quite unsightly most of the time because it's hard to maintain a muddy bottom. So that's just my 2 cents from what I've experienced.
Thank you, that helps clarify.
Any other questions or counsel to the applicants before we open it up to public?
I'm going to be happy. A lot of this has already been hit on, but I just kind of want to, clarify a couple of things. I've already kind of mentioned those restricted prohibited uses. I also want to mention that outlined in development standards, the applicant's also proposing to restrict the hours of operation for this as part of their conditional zoning. For any of the commercial uses, those proposed times are, those commercial uses will be allowed to operate between 5 a.m. and midnight, so essentially wouldn't be able to operate from midnight to 5 a.m. So they would be regulating their hours of operation as part of this conditional zoning. The architectural uniformity and consistency, as you've seen the elevations, once again, those are tied with the plan. They are conceptual in nature, but they do show the design intent and material. All that will then, once again, kind of be finalized if the rezoning is approved and move into the next stage as they go through permitting. Regarding tree preservation and mitigation, the applicant has provided a full tree survey of the existing canopy trees over 12 inches in diameter per our ordinance. So we do have, once again, record of that. Part of their construction document phase would include a tree mitigation plan, which essentially it was their landscape and buffering plan and what they're going to be planning to mitigate the trees being removed from the site as part of the initial site development. We've already kind of talked about buffers, but once again, they are proposing the Type B buffer yard per Article 11. This consists of a minimum of 25 feet, and the proposal does comply with that, and the proposal goes up to 45 feet wide in the for this buffer in certain areas, which brings the average of the buffer area to 31.97 feet. That buffer type does require a minimum of 60% opacity as well. Once again, the detailed landscape and buffer plans will be required as part of the construction document phase. Open space, kind of talked about this as well. On this proposed plan, they have a total of 1.63 acres of tree preservation and buffers and 1.18 acres of interior open space, which is 10%, which does exceed the minimum for this district of 7.5. Can you go to the site plan for a sec? That calculation does not include the open space. Go one more. They're like green space there at the right towards the intersection. So their open space will then even exceed that 10%. It's been recommended and written into the development standards that the applicant will provide a commercial amenity and open space plan once they finalize their site layout with the commercial buildings. Parking, the proposed development has on their proposal of 472 parking spaces, including 5 PEV parking spaces, which is roughly approximately 3 spaces per 1,000. Once again, final layout of the parking and spaces provided will have to comply with the required parking minimums per the MDO. We've already kind of talked about access, but the other thing is that they will be providing sidewalk connectivity along Tom Short and Ray Road, as well as internal sidewalk connectivity to access the interior of the site and throughout the site. Water and sewer, once again, would be provided through the county. They would have to go through that permitting process to receive that approval. And then finally, the applicant has met all application requirements, and they did hold a neighborhood meeting on Monday, March 31st at 6 p.m. Those neighborhood meeting reports and information is also included in the packets and incorporated into the application. Other than that, that's the last thing I'll say is just staff does recommend approval of the proposed rezoning. Planning board voted or did consider this application at their meeting last month. It was the motion by the planning board was to recommend approval. The planning board voted 3-3, so therefore the motion failed. But it was a split vote on that recommendation. However, per state statute and our ordinance, it still comes to you guys, obviously, with staff's recommendation and planning board recommendation, and it's ultimately the council's decision, legislative decision, to vote on the rezoning. So, that being said, is there any questions specifically for me?
For you?
Or, I mean, any other questions either for me or the applicant before?
I think we missed, Jamie asked a question and it kind of got brushed by the side. Mr. Miller, can you tell us when you expect to know whether or not the grocery store anchor would be included in the site plan?
I'll know within the next 6 months or less.
Okay. What's your thoughts on that?
Let me answer that with a little history. We bought this property in 2008. Our partner is Harris Teeter. We, over the last 16 years or 17 years, gone through phases where they were ready to put a store there, then they weren't ready to put a store there, and then they were ready to put a store there. All I can tell you is at this point, I don't have a commitment, but we are committed to moving forward with this project, and they are too, as our partner. And so they understand the urgency of giving a final answer on that, but it's a slower process because they have, several layers to go through. If I was guessing, I would guess that it probably is not going to be a grocery store, that it will more than likely be multi-tenant buildings like what you see on this plan. The only thing I would caution is that the 65,000-foot building, it may be that some of our, what I call junior anchors, are in the 30,000 square foot range. Those boxes that you see on that plan are not 30,000-foot boxes. So it's conceivable, although we may not have a grocery store, we may have a 50 or 60,000-foot building that has 2 tenants in it, as opposed to a 15 or a 30,000-foot building. So we'll get that. But we will know probably in less than 6 months whether we're going to have a grocery store there.
All right, thank you.
Rob, refresh my memory, the average square footage on the single-family homes and the bedrooms and also on the townhomes?
We haven't,
Not that far?
yeah, we don't, in other words, we have started designing it, but we kind of felt it's always bad luck to design it before we get this, find out what the final vote is, because it's quite an undertaking. We're using our architects out of Jacksonville, Florida, and she'll provide that. As soon as I know, I'll be happy to share that. If I had it, I'd share it now.
Okay. Thank you.
There was one other question that Andy asked about the wet versus dry ponds. I think we can let you know, and we would prefer the wet ponds because it's more of an amenity to our retail as well as the residential. But the reality is we also have to meet design standards for, I forget the acronym, the Department of Natural Resources that gives the permit for the store, huh? DEQ, okay. And there's some concerns that they have to go through and approve to determine whether or not we will be permitted to have a wet pond. So that's why we can't commit at this time that it's going to be or that it's not going to be, because there's a lot of third-party input we have to get from the state on that issue. But clearly, it would be a much nicer amenity to have at the front door to our project if we could do wet.
Right.
We did do wet across the street at the Kohl Center. We have a wet pond, not a dry pond.
Okay, well, appreciate that.
Okay. Good to open it up to public comments. I think we have a few people.
Yes, first up is Kelly Rubottom at 8912 Whittingham Drive.
And I'm going to, before you get up and say, I'm going to just make a statement just so you guys, before we start that. Obviously, thank you guys for all coming out tonight. I want to acknowledge the wide range of feedback we've received on this proposal, including from individuals who live outside of Marvin. We understand that annexation and development can have regional effects, and we respect the perspectives being shared. That said, as elected officials, our primary responsibility is to the residents and taxpayers of Marvin. They're the ones who will experience the long-term benefits of the proposal firsthand. This isn't just about growth, it's about smart, intentional growth. We all know that something will eventually be built on this land. The question is, do we want to say in it and what it looks like, or do we risk getting another project like a dollar store that doesn't reflect Marvin's values or vision? I was here when they put in the 3-story storage facilities that back right up next to Marvin Homes, and what says Marvin more than 3 storage facilities? But it wasn't part of Marvin, and that was because of a previous council. So it happens, things happen, and what the intent is. And I was there opposing that when they put that in along with the pool as well. So these things do happen. The proposal gives us a chance to be proactive, not reactive, to ensure development aligns with what our community actually wants. By expanding our commercial base, we can diversify our revenue streams and help keep residential property taxes lower. The proposed development increases our property tax base and encourages local shopping, which means more sales tax come to Union County than Marvin. I guarantee you most of us are going into Mecklenburg to do our shopping, and those taxes go to Mecklenburg schools. Importantly, because this is primarily commercial, it places minimal strain on our schools, and the infrastructure, utilities, and more will be fully paid for by the developer, not by the town, the county, or the state. Beyond the fiscal benefits, this project also brings something many of our residents have asked for: the ability to shop and dine close to home right here in Marvin. We welcome respectful input from everyone, but ultimately it's Marvin's residents whose voices must carry the most weight. They live here, they pay taxes here, they'll be directly affected. Our responsibility in the end is to them, and we remain committed to doing what's in their best interest. And with that, I'll have you introduce the first person who wants to talk.
Kelly Rubottom, 8912 Whittingham Drive.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Rubottom, and as he said, I live at 8912 Whittingham Drive. I'm an abutting property owner and live, basically, my property backs right up to where the townhomes are going to be. My wife Jennifer and I moved our family here in 2003 to get away from the crowded metropolis Charlotte was becoming. For over 22 years, we've made long daily commutes to work in Charlotte as a sacrifice to have the peace and space to relax that Union County offers. We've been involved in matters concerning this property since then. In 2008, David Miller asked me to speak at the Union County Planning Board meeting on behalf of Rayleigh Miller. Mr. Miller wanted an abutting resident to help persuade the residents of Somerset that Rayleigh Miller would develop the property more in line with what the original PUD plan called for, neighborhood shopping. He said it would be a center that was harmonious with the character of the surrounding community and that it was also in his best interest to work with the community residents as the owner of the property. So I told the planning board that I believed that Mr. Miller was sincere and that I backed the purchase of the property. I no longer believe that. In every plan Rayleigh Miller has presented, they have needed variances or special permits or now Marvin Annexation to get around to get around the Union County zoning. Each time Mr. Miller assumed the residents would love his plan and support it with the governing body whose approval he needed. He never asked me or any of the other local residents that I knew what they actually would like and how we could work together to achieve that. He just showed us his plans and got hostile when most of the residents didn't like it. The problem is that they are always substantially different from what the original plan called for and what he promised us when he needed our help. They were not the small shops with one large anchor tenant like the ones Mr. Miller suggested we look at as examples of what he would deliver. Rather than listen and work with us, he just gets combative and as he has with his current plan. North Carolina General Statute 160D-702A requires zoning to be uniform for each class or kind of a building. Other similar Marvin developments, such as Marvin Gardens, have over 60-foot buffers. The PUD was designed this way. We purchased our homes with that zoning in mind, and David Miller promised me personally the 60-foot buffers in the plan when he needed my help. Now he wants 20. With 45-foot buildings towering over 20 feet from my property, it's hard to imagine that that fits with the character of our community. 45 feet, it's 30 feet from my property line to their back door. 30 feet. That is from that clipboard to that wall. And this building, at the top of those windows, is 23 feet. You double that, you get to 46. You drop that by a foot, and that's how big the building we're talking about is. I ask you please to reject this plan as it sits. We'll work with them, but not like this.
No, that was fine. Hi, my name is Akener Tisner. I'm a homeowner resident at 8910 Whittingham Drive, next door neighbors with Kelly, who just spoke, in Somerset, which borders the area under consideration for rezoning and development. I wish we had the map so you could refer to where we exactly live.
Yeah, we are.
Love technology as long as it works.
Should I continue? It's my mic. We'll come back to it.
You can.
Tonight I'm speaking to you to respectfully ask you to vote no on the current proposed rezoning and annexation of this property because I think the developer, the owner could do better than, what they're proposing. And I'd like to explain my reasons for this request. So I live, I would want to show it, but we live on Whittingham Drive, which borders the property on the east side. So it's it's a straight street till about Ray Road. The townhomes are there, so the highest, the tallest part of this development, which will impact our lives more than a lot of other Somerset residents. Again, we just learned about a possible drop of 7 feet or so, or 10 feet maybe, but then 45 feet is towering. So the current plan for the area is, I think, very concerning for the traffic of the greater area. It would bring significant changes to vehicle traffic and pedestrian traffic in and around, not just that intersection, but on Tom Short itself, and way from Union County into Mecklenburg part of Tom Short. So as proposed, this development would be the densest in all of Marvin and Western Union County, introducing 75 residential units alongside a large-scale commercial area. Now, I lived in 3 different countries, 4 different states in the United States, and I haven't liked the property that I lived in better than the one that we have right now. So, and we chose this area because it was dictionary definition American suburbia. You want to raise kids. This is just the perfect place, and that's how we bought the property. Good schools, reasonable distance to commute. I commute to Uptown now 3 times a week. It was 5 times. Relatively safe, not a lot of commercial activity, not too many lights, not too many things to be worried about for your kids and your peace of mind. And developments like this, higher density developments like this, I think threaten the fabric of, that type of suburbia. In some cases, unhabitable, but we, as obviously residents of Somerset, we would like to resist that as much as we can.
That's time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Next up is Forrest Kelly, 9024 Tenton Lane.
Good evening. My name is Forrest Kelly. I live in the last house on Tenton Hall Lane in Somerset. When my wife and I bought our property, we knew that the property in question would be developed. We did our research, we understood what it was approved for and what the plan was, and we have been looking forward for over 6 years to what is going to come. What is being proposed today, however, is nowhere close to what had previously been proposed. Now, as a neighborhood, Somerset had no formal discussions on the plan, and there was a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty as to what was coming. What was clear was that many of the impacted property owners had many issues with the plan as developed, or as proposed, and no clear answers. So for that reason, my wife started a petition asking that Marvin Town Council reject the plan as proposed. I believe all of you have received a copy of that petition, and I believe all of you, but maybe one, have spoke to my wife about this. Now, I understand that surveys can be questioned, online surveys. So for this reason, my wife did some research, and I brought some numbers to you. As of this afternoon, there are 763 signatures. My wife conducted a statistically valid random sample in order to assess the authenticity of signatures and to make conclusions. Randomly selected a sample of 288 signatures. Of those 288 sampled, we were able to verify 258 and feel confident, given more time, that more could be verified. This gave us a 90% validity rate. Now, based on this validity rate, we can assume the petition has around 684 valid signatures, And based on what we verified in the sample, 77% of the verified signatures live either in Marvin, in Somerset, or in the 2813 zip code. This standard random sampling approach gives us a high level of confidence these numbers reflect the petition as a whole. This gives us a solid read not just on how many signatures are valid, but also how many come from right here within our community, as addressed by the mayor, that is the primary concern of the board. It shows the petition is legitimate and that there's real, measurable local support for it. Now, I've attended all of the planning session meetings on this development. I've heard good, productive dialogue in those meetings. I've also observed a lot of questions go unanswered, and I've observed a lot of confusion about the plan. There's a lot of uncertainty with this plan. From what we have seen from the county, we prefer their guidelines over Marvin's. The impacted property owners are not happy with the buffers, we're not happy with the height of the townhomes, and we are not happy with the drastic increase in density that will come with this plan. That is why the petition is asking the council to vote against this plan as proposed. Thank you.
Time. Thank you. Next up is Andrew Katz, 225 Tyndale Court.
Evening. My name is Andrew Katz. I live at 225 Tyndale Court, right at the end of the cul-de-sac that you saw lining up to the single-family homes. I first want to thank you all. I think you guys did a great job asking questions today. A lot of the questions that you asked were actually answered. That has not been the case for months now. There have been a lot of unanswered questions. A lot of the feedback that we provided was shot down. There was no room for adjustment. They could not fit it into their plan, and we saw that change a little bit today. One of the things that still stands out, though, is this plan just is not flushed out. They have no commercial tenants. I mean, we're looking at, 75 townhomes being built at 45 feet towering over neighboring homes. All of a sudden today, maybe there's going to be some grading and some adjustment and some barriers put in. That's all brand new. The other piece, too, it's great to see the concession around the gas stations. But then what about the limitations? You heard there's still drive-throughs. We could still have fast food. We could still have liquor stores. We could still have a dollar store. You mentioned again those hideous storage units. These homes, those townhomes are way taller than those storage units, backing right up to single-family homes. It destroys the character of the neighborhood. Again, we're not anti-development. We just want it to be reasonable. It's why we've come to the town of Marvin to have these conversations, because we believe that this is a beautiful place to be. We didn't all move to the suburbs to be jammed next to a high-density development. You know, one of the key things that we ask here is that we just be responsible. They don't have a commercial tenant. We're looking at 1 to 3 years of potential construction after the actual residential is developed. Again, just need to make sure there are guardrails in place. It needs to be done responsibly. We're all neighbors. If there's ever a dream where maybe Somerset, Hunter Oaks, or some of our other neighboring communities are going to be then annexed into Marvin, they're not going to be as open to that if what we end up with is a tragedy here due to the high density that's actually being proposed. What I remember hearing before is minimum buffers, minimum parking requirements, exceeding the height of buildings. Some of this seems to be being talked about and actually being adjusted. Let's put it in writing. Let's make sure it's complete. Let's make sure it's something that we can all be proud of, because at the end of the day, we're all neighbors. So I just ask again that you really be considerate, that you maybe hold off on your vote for today, have them come back with a truly flushed out plan, and again, something that we can really put a stamp on and be proud of. Thank you.
Okay. That's all, Mr. Mayor. You may proceed.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead and close the public hearing now and open it up to council members for questions.
I have a question, Hunter. This whole thing that we're entertaining involving townhomes, and I'm asking, what kind of precedent does this set that we incorporate in the community townhomes? And while we're developing the Heritage District, that comes up again. At what point does that have an influence on the village of Marvin? What kind of precedent does it?
My opinion, one, I mean, every single decision is an individual decision of of the legislative body. You as council can take in precedent, or you don't have to. There's no, and Chaplain, if you say anything wrong, there's no legal thing that somebody can argue, hey, because that's here, I should be able to do it here. Ultimately, this is the only property in Marvin, if approved, that will be rezoned to this MU2 district. Any other property that would want to have townhomes would have to go through the same process.
Excuse me, can we keep the noise down in the back there? Thank you.
So therefore, in that, that's one part of that. The other part that comes into this is the land use plan. I know we're going through the process of doing a comprehensive, an update and doing a more comprehensive land use plan this year. That's where you really can get into that nitty gritty. I'm trying to maybe, if there is any other, I'm not saying there is, I'm hypothetical here. If there is other property in Marvin or Marvin surrounding S, similar to this property, that the highest and best use or maybe a good fit for it, we can designate on the future land use plan or map to be for this type, that type of residential development. But at the end of the day, it still would have to go through rezoning and go through the same process and come before the elected board to make that decision.
Hunter, I keep hearing that this is the densest in Union County, or Western Union County, and the densest in Marvin at 2.67 units per acre. Is that accurate or not accurate?
That is not accurate. Through mine, and I can get it pulled up here, the density of the courtyards is the densest, quote unquote, in Marvin's jurisdiction, which was a individual conditional zoning that was approved, I think in 2014, 16, something. But I would have to double check on what that was if you want to give me one sec. But overall, in Union County, once again, I don't have those numbers, but we would have to look at, Waxhaw, any other municipality, and look at certain developments that have been approved there to see what their dwelling unit per acre is.
Okay. And then, I guess maybe this question is for you, Mr. Miller. Commercial tenants, do they usually commit to a plan before it's approved? Or I've never been involved in approving a commercial plan, so I don't know how that works. Can you walk us through that?
No, they won't take their national tenants, what I call anchor tenants, won't take a site to their committees unless we can commit to a site plan. That's fundamental to their approval. If we can't tell them we can put the store there, their comment is, come back to us when you have the ability to put our store.
And to answer your question, the courtyards was 61 units on 20.5 acres, yielding a 2.9 dwelling unit per acre density, which is higher than what's being proposed. Those setbacks were also 10 on the front, 5 on the side, and their buffers to the south of residential, which I think that's Providence, or it's Willow Creek, but it's the subdivision behind it, it's a 20-foot buffer there.
Okay. So this one has a higher buffer?
Correct.
To Kim's point, Mr. Miller, the group that actually owns this property that is commercial, which is Teeter, has yet to decide.
Not quite accurate. The group that owns this is a joint venture between my company, Rayleigh Miller Properties, and Harris Teeter. Okay? The decision as to whether to put a grocery store there is Harris Teeter's.
Okay.
But still, no commercial will commit to coming in unless you have an approved plan.
No, because they don't, yeah, no, they don't, because they don't know what they're committing to, yeah, in terms of the type of project, yeah.
Any more questions from council after all the discussion?
I don't, listen, I've taken all this in, and I really do appreciate everyone's input, and the comments that were made, and everything that goes around this, because this is not This is not a decision made lightly. But there was a comment made, and we keep saying no. And I just need to remind this council and remind everyone that's here and everyone that's out in the land, there was a council that voted no. And when that council voted no, they voted no to have a seat at the table, and that's the most important thing here. They voted no, they didn't have a seat at the table, and what happened next was we got a 3-story storage unit and a swimming pool. So we don't take this decision lightly when we make this vote, but we are also voting for a seat at the table or not to have a seat at the table. No doesn't mean nothing's going to happen. What no does mean from our standpoint is we no longer have a seat at the table. We can't say, we can't recommend, we can't suggest, we can't say, here's our ordinance. We can't say anything that. I always go back to, I had this conversation with someone the other day that said, do you remember the game show, Let's Make a Deal? And on Let's Make a Deal, you got to, there's door number 1, and door number 1 had all this stuff in it. And you could pick door number 1, or you could take door number 2. Door number 2, they wouldn't open up door number 2. But if you said, you know what, I don't want 1, the answer is no, I want 2. And sometimes there was something back there, but a lot of times there was a goat, there was a mule. And that's what you got. And oh, by the way, you couldn't go back to the game show host and go, oh, no, I changed my mind. I see what's back behind number 2 now. I want to go back to number 1. No, they said, take your mule, take your goat, and, come back again. Again, I want people to understand that we don't take this lightly, but no takes us away from the table. And we have no say. And there's no accountability. We can't put any accountability. He walks out of here today, goes to Union County, goes to his other plan, and says, that's what I'm going to do. And when someone comes to us, we go, nope, you voted for door number 2. So it's not left, because I hear every word. I put myself in your shoes, in Somerset's shoes, and every constituent's shoes before I make a decision. And I also base my decision on 100% of the information. And, like with most things, are we going to make everyone happy? No, we will never make everyone happy. But we have to make a decision based on what's presented to us, the best decision, and what also puts us in a position to move forward, not be left beside the road going, nope. Answer's no. And so that's just my 2 cents worth on it to say, we do hear you, we appreciate your input, we appreciate all your emails. And there was one email in particular, I really, and this gentleman is sitting in this room right now, I won't call out his name, but he took the time to not copy and paste. He took the time, and it was a long, lengthy email. So I know his passion, I know what he stands for, I know what his feelings are, and I absolutely considered them, but it was the effort put in, not the copy and paste. But I will tell him thank you for the email and the information, and we certainly will, I guess we'll move to, consider this moving forward.
Well, I want,
Just reminding you really fast that you have 2 motions that you will consider. First, the annexation, then the rezoning and the development agreement. Sorry, Bob.
I just have one last comment I want to make to the village of Marvin and the citizens. When I came into this office 6 years ago, since then, we've put 100 homes in this town. We've put over almost 80 homes over at the Heritage District, the Marvin Estates, the Sage. And I had no idea that we would have these many homes. When I go to Ray Farms, I'm appalled.
I've never seen so much density in all my life, and I don't know what is going on with our civilization. We seem to dense up. You know, right now, Fort Mill suspended all this kind of stuff until December when they get their land use plan. They suspended all kinds of zonings, any kind of commercial, any kind of residential, because they're trying to get a handle on their own town. I'm quite honestly, I'm over development, and I'm over density. I can't take it. And quite honestly, it looks like a beautiful plan. Gentlemen, it's a beautiful plan. When I walked into the room and I saw that plan for the first time, I asked myself, why do I need to be known? What do you need my input for? What is it for me? What is it for the people of Marvin? What got me is when I saw the amount of homes going in. When I pass by what are beautiful homes at the Heritage, when you see it on paper and when you see it in real life, you all of a sudden realize, really, those homes are 10 feet apart? It's dense. And I've had it. I've seen all those homes. I know what it's supposed to serve. It's supposed to serve this Heritage District that we're already got going on, which is one of the reasons I voted for the prior rezoning. And we still have more to go. There's still more homes that are going to be built to fulfill the heritage. I'm just gonna say it's a nice project. I love what Jamie you said, and having a seat at the table. And as I walked into the room, I wanted to ask myself, why do I want to eat at this table? I don't know what's out there. It may be a Walmart as opposed to a Belk's. But it's the amount of people that I see that are coming into the town. My first goal was to reduce traffic. We're out of control. And when I hear about the schools and all that, I keep going by the homes at the Heritage District. I ask myself, how many automobiles are coming from that? How many homes are coming from the Sage? How many homes or how many automobiles are coming already from the Heritage, the Marvin Estates? And there's other subdivisions too that are in our donut holes. There's a lot of traffic out there. There's a lot of mankind coming upon us. And unfortunately, I'm gonna make a stand here, so when the vote comes through, you'll see how I vote. Thank you.
I will, on the flip side of things, and John, I'll get to you. Do you have anything you want to comment before I? John?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. On the flip side, sometimes you lose a say at the table too, and that happened under my watch when I fought it out with a state legislator, and it was just beyond Andy's, and they promised all kind of things. And this group didn't even come before us. They never even presented to us. Yet they had a friend at the state legislature who went and got his state senators to say, let's pluck this out of Marvin. And they did, and that's where you see the townhomes north of Andy's. That's where you see the 30 kids, because they're probably a lot more affordable, quite frankly, and it's easier to get into Marvin. I think I agree with you. When you're looking at $1 million product, that's not necessarily your first home, and it's probably someone who's, and I think I've heard some comments of Somerset people that say, I may be the first one to buy one of these condos because I can get out of my house where I have to take care of all of the land that goes with it and just have something that I'm close to, a nice restaurant or whatever that becomes. But it works both ways. Sometimes by default, we don't have a say, we have a choice. Sometimes, things just happen at the state legislature. I would love to see, it's hard to get groups to volunteer to come and pay a tax. None of you want to do it, but then where's your representation? I say that to these guys right across the street who are not part of Marvin, yet they want to say in whatever this guy wants to do, Fincher right here. Well, we've got to worry about our constituents and what's best for us and how that fits in. the original plan you guys had 13 years ago when I first started, I was not for a 16-screen theater. I didn't think 6,000, at the time, there were only 5,000 people that lived in this town. There's no way that a 16-screen theater, 5,000 people supports that. So I knew that we'd be getting traffic from, of all places, Lancaster, because Lancaster didn't have a theater, and they still don't, and the closest one is where that property moved to, which was on Johnston Road, which was a lot better, made a lot more sense. I got a lot of pushback for that, and it got ugly. So I'm with Jamie, too. I mean, we look at this as rather have a say. I think the hurdle's a little higher. I disagree with the gentleman that we're offering more or the county's offering less. I think you be careful what you ask for, because sometimes you put yourself in that situation. You can't go back to door number one, and then you find you're getting a Walmart or whatever it is. But we'll leave it up to the members here of the council to vote, and we're going to start with, if there's no more comments.
If there are no more comments, you would start with the annexation ordinance.
Okay.
No? All right. So I'm going to make a motion to adopt an ordinance extending the corporate limits of the Village of Marvin to annex the 28.11 acre property located at 9802 Ray Road, parcel 06-198002A.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
So for the record, that
Opposed?
was.
Yeah, for the record, opposed?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the record, that's 5 yeas and 1 no.
Yes. So I'll ask for it. No. Okay.
All right.
Motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt an ordinance approving a development agreement and conditional zoning map amendment, CZ-2025-2, to rezone the 28.11 acres located at 9802 Ray Road, parcel 06-198002A, from Union County B2 PUD 6B2 to Village of Marvin Mixed Use 2 CZ MU-2-CZ, and authorize the mayor to execute the development agreement upon final attorney review, and that the proposed conditional zoning map amendment and development is consistent with the Village of Marvin 2020 Land Use Plan and other officially adopted village plans, and is reasonable and in the public interest. Good job.
Further discussion? All is in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion passes 5-1 vote. All right. Now we're going to move into review of action.
I yield back, Mr. Mayor. We don't have any action items.
No. All right. Ready?
Yeah, review of action items.
No, they don't have any.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so it looks like Tyler's not here, so there's stuff that,
I may be able to answer any questions.
any update on the local organizations that can assist with the archaeological services?
He does not have any.
Anything on the updated trail standards for the spec manual?
We're still working on that.
Okay, thank you. Anything for the application for the Land and Water Conservation Fund local grant program?
We're still working on that as well. It'll be a fall project.
Okay. Davey, have you pulled the speed radar data to determine the times when drivers are driving at the high speeds? Okay. He said we're working on it. Did you assess the roads in Oak Brook Estates for maintenance issues? Come on down to the microphone so we can hear you. Everybody at home wants to hear you.
Forgive me, yes. We're meeting with the engineer this week to review that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Hold on. Stay here. Stay up here. Please, right now, please. Discuss the enforcement of Belgrove subdivision CCRs as they relate to the prohibiting of on-street parking. Do we know where we stand with them?
The last communication I had with them, I made them aware of the council's decisions and that they would need to work with their homeowners association and their subdivision property owners, and I've not heard back from them.
Okay, great. So we're still kind of in a holding pattern?
Yeah, there was an email that was sent over that I think maybe the HOA president said that it wasn't against their CCRs. You might want to just check your emails again and make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Any others?
I'm finished with you now, sir. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, I would like to say one thing. The work that has been done in Marvin Creek and Innisbrook looks very good. Thank you for coordinating all of that. It's much
Thank you.
appreciated. I've heard from Marvin Creek residents that they really do appreciate it.
I'll pass that along.
Thank you. Christina, execute the interlocal agreement for the Union County Senior Nutrition Program?
Yes, that's been done. However, we're waiting on the executed version back from them, so we
Leave it
can
on
still
there?
keep it.
Okay. And then scope of work for the survey
Same exact thing.
We're waiting for the signatures to come back.
from them?
And
Okay,
we can
great.
sign.
Okay, I'm finished. Thank you.
All right. Council comments, go around the horn. John, we'll start with you since you're abroad.
Just, one thing that I wanted to relay, I think most of us got an email that came from Davey discussing, what some of his employees did, when they were kind of trailing a car and some garbage had fallen out and so forth. And really just wanted to point that out that, our folks, that are doing our public works and so forth, even though it wasn't an official Marvin area that they cleaned up, it was nice for Davey to report that, our own folks just jumped out of the truck, kind of cleaned things up and, made sure that we were taking care of the roads in the neighborhood here in a manner that wasn't necessarily on them to do, but kind of above and beyond. And we like to see that in our employees.
Thanks, John. Full disclosure, I did see that email. I actually read it, clicked on it. You'll see it if you access it right now. And I was going to say the same thing, but you beat me to it, John. So
Me
good for
too.
you. And
Me too.
Thanks. So we'll start over here with Andy. Do you have anything?
John stole my thunder, so.
John, you're stealing everyone's
Don't all
thunder.
our thunder. I never say
Bob?
anything.
No comment.
Wayne.
Well, thanks staff and especially,
Hey, wait.
I want to thank the staff and especially Hunter for a comprehension of all the plans and everything tonight.
All right. Jamie.
Same. I did want to add on to the trail, because I got that email after. The other day I was taking the dog out, and we went down to Eford Park, and we're taking, and my lovely wife said, wow, this place is just really kept up. It is so pristine. It is like a sanctuary. The trails, everything. And, you go to the bathrooms, you look at the play set, you look at everything, the barn. And she was just like, you need to thank them. So my thanks, when I say thanks to staff, thank you for all you do. You put a lot of work in what we just went through today. There were many, many hours of hard work. Hunter, especially to you and the entire team. But also, we kind of miss the park staff, and they do a tremendous job, and that's a reflection. I mean, we get the kind of the thing of it, but they're the one that puts in the hard work. Everything's put in place, and kudos to them. Great job.
Thank you. Kim?
I never say anything.
Oh, my God.
I
She's
know.
gonna say
Yeah,
something.
John stole my thunder because I was going to recognize the fellas too, because they do a great job. And they really do a great job at the park, I will say, because my group of young men, they literally don't have any trash to pick up in there. Like, it's not even worth their time going in there as a service project to clean it up because it is kept up so
That's why
nicely.
they like that job. 'cause
Yeah,
they don't have to
probably.
do
I know.
anything.
They like to throw a Frisbee onto the roof of the barn, so, but no. Thank you to all of staff. I always say it to you guys individually. I never really recognize you guys in public, but you guys all do an amazing job. from Christina to all of staff, Chaplain, like, you guys are amazing. Ed, you two over there, buddy. And then all of council. We might not always agree on everything, but we are cordial. We respect each other. We respect each other's differences. And I appreciate everyone on council because a lot of time, energy, and effort goes into this that people just don't realize. And so thank you to everyone on council for your time and your energy and your effort that you put into the Village of Marvin. So thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I'd like to say, first off, congrats to Jill on getting her certification, but it'll go in the minutes anyway. Thanks, staff, law enforcement, for being here and for doing what you always do. And that lunch you recommended, Davey, may be a dinner now based on everyone giving that a thumbs up. But I want to talk real quick about something, and just it got me thinking again. Obviously,
Stop thinking?
no, I never stop thinking. But and this is more of a serious thing. What's happening over in Texas, the rains and that, and our prayers are certainly with all of those that are affected by this. And you just see the devastation. And actually, my niece and nephew live, and they actually showed pictures of how fast the water came up so quickly and stuff. And recently, right after graduation, my youngest graduated, she wanted to go to Asheville, and I was thinking, because I don't want to forget those guys up there. And I will tell you, we did a kayak tour, and as I was kayaking down the, what's the river? Somebody's got the French Broad River, yeah. I'm literally, and I've got pictures of this, and I encourage you to look at it. I am kayaking with my family, and I'm looking up in the trees at least 20 feet high, and there's debris that shouldn't be in the trees. That's where the water level was. And then when you look around and you see, wow, what did that devastate? It's amazing. And I made a point to, I said I would give a little shout out to Adventures by Asheville. They do kayak. We were the only group that day, and it was a nice sunny day, because I think everyone's thinking that nobody's going up there because, and now Asheville, they got hit hard, but they're back in business. There's a woodworking company. He gave me some things. I actually would like to take this to WUMA. That's my plan, to get with these people. He gave me some of the areas that are really hurting in the surrounding areas of Asheville, but they're coming back. They're in temporary tents doing woodworking and stuff. And I just thought how fast, because that was back in September, so it's almost been a year. But just seeing that devastation where it was, seeing what just happened there, let's not forget about them. I'm going to probably see if there's an interest of WUMA in getting some sort of municipality drive to figure out first who we talk to, maybe start with the town of Asheville or whatever, and maybe get some direction of what we can do to help out from a local level. And let's not forget our friends up there. And obviously, if you're inclined to help out with Texas, there's plenty of ways you can do that. So just want to keep them in your prayers. And so thank you for that. I know this was, this meeting today was we were all looking forward to it. And it's again, like, until you have a backhoe in somebody's backyard, they don't show up and stuff. But, in fairness, the majority of them were not our residents, and they choose not to pay a tax. They could all volunteer to be a part of Marvin. But, we want to listen, we want to be good neighbors, but in the end, there's, I don't like seeing eyesores like we see that are part right next to Marvin. I'd rather have a say going forward, and if it brings a little income that can keep our taxes low, so be it. And I don't think they're going to get the amount of kids for schools. I don't think it's going to affect like they do based on the price of these things. But that's just my thought. I may be dead wrong. So with that, I will say thank you all to council for putting in your work and time for this. And with that, I'll need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Any nays?
Any nays? Which one works better? Okay. I need a good pen. Hey, John.
Did you find parking?
Are you coming to me?
I'll show you this. What's up? What's that?
Well, I saw, yeah, who is that?